Hi everyone and welcome back to Bonnie Astrology. I hope you're all doing really well. These are the horoscopes for July 2024. As always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up to let me know that you like it. You can subscribe to the channel for regular astrology content if you'd like, and if you want to follow any of my socials with more frequent astrological predictions and forecasts, they're listed in the description as well. As you may realise if you're a regular here, I'm not actually appearing on screen at all in this video. I usually appear for at least the introduction to the video. These scenes are from a recent trip to Achill Island in County Mayo, which is absolutely stunning. So I wanted to share some of those clips, but unfortunately on that trip I actually got COVID and I'm trying to get over it at the moment, and as you know, when you're sick, sometimes you just want to be ugly in peace. So I'm not appearing on screen. And you might also recognise the beach in these clips from the movie Banshees of Inisherin with Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson and Barry Keoghan. Unfortunately, none of these lads were on the beach while I was there. But pretty good movie, pretty traumatising. But the beach was beautiful and I would really recommend going to Achill Island if you're ever in County Mayo. But just to touch on the astrology for July, there's a lot going on with leadership this month. We have a full moon in Capricorn and it is the second of two full moons, the last one being at the end of June. This full moon is at the anaretic degree of Capricorn, the crisis degree, and Pluto is going to retrograde back onto this degree from September to November. Capricorn is all about our governments, hierarchies, top-down structures, and the anaretic degree is about crisis and urgent change being required. So there can be urgent change taking place this month when it comes to leaders, a crisis of leadership, a call for change, particularly with Pluto being in Aquarius. This month still change by the people for better leadership, better quality, or leaders that are more in alignment with the needs of the people. And particularly as the inner planets moving into Leo this month are going to oppose Pluto in Aquarius, there can be calls for revolution, calls from change for the people against people in leadership positions. And there can also be crisis when it comes to the monarchy with these inner planets in Leo opposing Pluto in Aquarius. So these are areas that can see a lot of change publicly this month. And there can also be a need for change in your own life when it comes to career or your sense of purpose or your goals in this particular chapter of your life, with the full moon in Capricorn and Pluto going over that degree later. There's a really loving new moon in Cancer though on the 5th, and there can be really loving new beginnings taking place in the Cancer part of your chart. This new moon has a connection to Venus, so this can bring a lot of loving connection and sentimental value to the new beginnings that are taking place around the time of this new moon. Mercury enters Leo and Virgo this month and will go retrograde in August in Virgo, but retrograde back into Leo. So pay attention to conversations and the details this month, as they may actually, you may be more prone to misunderstandings, miscommunication, and therefore these details may be required to go over again, to be taken a closer look at in August as well, to be reviewed in August. So it's something to mind. Mind the details this month. Make sure you're dotting the I's, crossing the T's, and double checking a lot of the information and communication that's happening you this month. Mars enters Gemini on the 20th, so people could be a little bit more verbally argumentative. People can be a bit more witty and more inclined to say the thing, but it can also lead to bitchiness and gossip and some verbal confrontations, so do watch out for that. Mars going through Gemini can be very much the sense of the pen is mightier than the sword, so use it wisely. Your words have power this month. There's a very explosive connection between Mars and Uranus before Mars goes into Gemini, while Mars is still in Taurus on the 15th. Try not to overreact or make any sudden movements on this day from a place of reactivity, because there can be an explosive energy around the 15th and people can be more impulsive and quick to anger than usual. With Uranus being in the mix, I say put space between you and whatever is exceptionally hot at this time. Don't throw more gas on the fire, so to speak. We do have a lot of fun this month with the Leo placements, but as I say, there can be a move for change when it comes to leadership and power struggles. Who has the power and what needs to change? It's a big theme this month, and we also might be getting some reality checks with Neptune going retrograde in the 2nd in the sign of Pisces. I suggest you pay attention to your dreams around the 2nd, because they could be very vivid and alerting you to something that needs to be addressed or reconsidered or needs to change this month. I hope you all have a beautiful month ahead. The horoscopes are all listed below with the timestamps. I suggest you watch your rising, but you can also watch your sun as well. That is what I have for you. Talk to you soon. Hi Aries, and welcome to July 2024. This is your horoscope. So Aries, there's actually quite a bit of focus on healing this month. So I'm going to start at the end of the month, toward the end of the month, on the 26th. Chiron, which is known as the wounded healer, is going retrograde in your sign. And so you may notice around this time that some old wounding is coming up surrounding your relationship to yourself, to your identity, to your body, to your temperament, to your self-image. You could be feeling a little bit more self-conscious or self-aware around this time. And perhaps some old wounding you thought you had dealt with comes up for review, and it's time to look at it again from a different perspective and to see how you can use some of those insecurities or self-doubts to fuel something creative in your life. How can you use these insecurities to be a better person, to help other people? That is the energy of Chiron. So for example, with Chiron in Aries natives, we see a lot of the most famous actors because Chiron in Aries can give us wounding surrounding our identity, who we are at our core. And a lot of the time people who become actors can have that kind of wounding, and they can enjoy stepping into somebody else's character, somebody else's identity from time to time. So you may find that perhaps if you have Chiron in Aries natally, or as this transit is happening in your first house, you may decide you want to try theatre, you want to try acting as a hobby, not necessarily a career. Maybe for some of you it is, but you may want to get theatrical and perhaps use the arts as a way to heal your relationship to yourself, to work through these insecurities in order to entertain other people. There's actually quite a lot happening this month when it comes to entertainment as well, Aries, but I will get to that in a second. The other energy coming up that is very focused on your inner world and your healing is that Neptune is going retrograde at the crisis degree of Pisces in your 12th house. The crisis degree, when any planet is there, it can bring this sense of urgency. And for you, it's incredibly internal. But you may also be feeling that you need to end something in your life. You're feeling this urgency to wrap up a particular cycle. You're perhaps feeling the urgency to make things right, to address some karma, to work through some past stuff, or to even, work through some things spiritually that you can't quite see but you can feel. This can manifest as a lot of strange, unusual karmic occurrences playing out that you can't quite explain, but you're wrapping up cycles. So say you have some serious past life karma with somebody, you could be having very unusual interactions with that person or unusual happenings with that person around this time. This can also be a time when you really want to uncover some secrets. You want to know who your hidden enemies are. You want to know what your self-sabotaging behaviors are, and you might be doing a lot of work with your subconscious. So whether that's that you're working with a therapist, I think a lot of you are feeling this desire to end something, to wrap something up, or to uncover something within you. And this could make you a little bit more reflective. You could want to be in solitude. Some of you could be going on retreats or taking some time to yourself, going ghost on social media or something like that to look inward. Aries, that is an energy that is going on for you this month with Neptune, especially around the 2nd when Neptune actually does station retrograde. You may feel it the most. Do pay attention to your dreams because they are going to be illuminating a lot for you when it comes to your subconscious, what's going on within you. And for some of you, you might actually also feel the need to get to the root of a trauma or a mental health crisis, or you might really want to work through something you've maybe not felt the courage to, or maybe you've just not had the time or the resources to before. And with Saturn retrograde in that sector too, you're quite committed to doing this type of inner work, Aries. There is a new moon happening in the 5th in your 4th house, and this new moon is suggesting for a lot of you that maybe there's a new beginning happening when it comes to your home. Maybe you're moving home, maybe you're purchasing a home, getting a new rental, maybe you're renovating, maybe you are deciding you want to start looking for a home. With Mars in your 2nd house sextiling Saturn around the time of this new moon, I think a lot of you could be committing financially to something or wanting to invest in something long term. For some of you, it could be a property abroad or a space abroad, but I think a lot of you want to have some sort of new beginning, new chapter in your home life. And this can be a new addition to your family as well. Perhaps someone in your family is expecting a baby. There could be some sort of new chapter beginning with a family member, perhaps a reset on your relationship with a family member, Aries. And speaking of the moons, we also have the 2nd full moon this year in Capricorn, the first occurring around the solstice in July. So there's actually quite an illumination, Aries, on your professional life, your professional sector. So pay attention what was going on around the 18th to the 22nd of June, career-wise, professionally. The spotlight is on you in a big way, and similarly there will be a spotlight coming up around the 21st. So if you look at around the 19th again to the 22nd of July, there's an illumination in your career. For some of you, this can be a promotion. For some of you, this can be a new job, starting a new job. For some, it's leaving a job. It could be a professional accomplishment or achievement, or you could be reaching some sort of goal at this time, not necessarily for career, but you may find yourself in the spotlight publicly, or you're more inclined to be front and center when it comes to discussions, particularly at work, Aries. So, you want to make sure that you're being seen in your best life professionally around this time. This full moon is a little bit more, I would say with Saturn retrograde now, I think you're a little bit more reflective on your professional accomplishments and a little bit more reflective on the work that you're doing behind the scenes and whether that work is getting you where you need to go effectively. But this one does have a lovely sextile to Neptune. So some of the work that you've been doing behind the scenes is likely to be favored. Themes of compassion, being giving, being caring, being maybe even spiritual for some of you could have you held in high regard with the work that you do. The full moon is as well at the anaretic, the crisis degree. So I think for a lot of you, you're really wanting to get something wrapped up career-wise, get something going. You want to be recognized. You feel a sense of urgency. You feel a sense of karma with this. Something just has to be done, or you have to get this, or it's wrapping up a very particular experience for you that has been quite profound and has maybe changed you internally. But I'm also getting the sense, because Pluto is going to go back to this degree in September until November, that when it comes to your career, you're going to be making a lot of changes when it comes to your public life, when it comes to your reputation, when it comes to your achievements. You do seem to be wrapping up a particular cycle, Aries, that is very important to you and could be for some of you quite prominent as well. Quite significant change when Pluto is included in the mix. So right up until the 22nd, with the Sun in Cancer, the new moon being in Cancer, Venus is in Cancer until the 11th. There is this focus on home and family, and maybe you're feeling a little bit more introverted. Maybe you're working from home more. Maybe you're wanting to spend more time with your family. There are more social events with your family. There is more time being invested into your home, into your living space, and that is your center focus until the 22nd. The 22nd, the Sun enters your 5th house. Venus enters your 5th house on the 11th. Mercury enters there in the 2nd. And we start to see a lot of opportunities for fun, for romance, for play, for pleasure, for enjoyment. Perhaps some of you are getting creative. You're going to more concerts, you're looking to be entertained, or you're looking to entertain yourself, this is a wonderful time for all of those, particularly with Venus entering Leo on the 11th. It's great to go to concerts, or it's great if you are an entertainer, you're likely to be held in high favor. It's a really good time for finding love if you're single. There's a lot of romantic energy with Venus transiting your 5th house. The only thing I will say that there's a few dates to watch out for. So the 3rd, when Mercury in your 5th house opposes Pluto, there could be some power struggles in conversations. There could be a tug of war with opinions. On the 11th, the 12th, sorry, Venus in your 5th house is opposing Pluto in your 11th. There could be a little bit of a power struggle romantically or with a child in your life. And then the Sun opposes Pluto on the 23rd, whereby you could be feeling a little bit like someone's ego is getting in the way of your progress. A few dates to watch out for. The oppositions to Pluto in Aquarius are quite significant because this is very new territory for all of us. So you may be finding that with Leo energy being in the picture, people are a little bit more stubborn, they're a little bit more ego focused, there's a little bit more showy and theatrics when it comes to the power struggles that present in July. Now Mars enters Gemini on the 20th, and Mars entering your 3rd house means that when it comes to a war of words, you're likely to win. You may be a little bit sharp in conversation, so do watch for that. And there can be arguments or discord with neighbours or siblings or people in your extended family as well, Aries. And be careful when driving on the road because you're more susceptible to road rage or angry drivers with Mars in Gemini. A key date to watch out for, particularly when it comes to your money, is the 15th. Mars meets Uranus in Taurus, and you may be having to spend your money on something that surprises you. Perhaps this is an unexpected expense, or perhaps it is that you buy something really rather impulsively. With Mars and Uranus, there's a quite explosive, impulsive, unsurprising energy when it comes to your finances. So be mindful that you might have to pay for something you didn't expect. You might also receive money you didn't expect to receive. You might have an innovative idea you want to act on when it comes to making money as well, Aries. And that is what I have for you for July. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Taurus, welcome to July. I hope it is a good one. So Taurus, you have Mars in your sign until the 20th of July. So make the most of the excess energy, the drive, the ambition to do something for yourself, to make something happen for yourself. Mars in your sign happens every 2 years and it makes you a self-starter. So you might be finding that you have the energy to approach or initiate something in your life for you. A personal goal, the energy and the activity, perhaps even to work out more, to be more active, to get things done. Mars does meet Uranus on the 15th, and you may be feeling quite impulsive. You could be feeling a bit anxious. You might have excess energy, and you might feel like you want to get something done, switch things up, make changes quite quickly or quite suddenly. Be mindful of this because it's happening in your 1st house. You don't want to unexpectedly injure yourself. So say you haven't gone on a run in years and you decide you have all this excess energy, you're going to go for a run. Make sure you warm up beforehand. Just common sense, not jumping into something too quickly physically that could harm you if you don't, warm up beforehand, for example. Just make sure that you are exercising a bit of caution when it comes to taking action on something around this time, because you don't want to give yourself an injury, as it might be kind of an unexpected injury with Uranus being in the mix. But you could be feeling a little bit overly energetic. You could have a lot of excess energy and you might want to channel it constructively around this time, Taurus, to break a pattern or make the type of changes that you've been afraid to make, perhaps for some of you. Now, jumping back to the start of the month, Neptune's going to go retrograde at the crisis degree of Pisces, so 29 degrees, the anaretic degree. And as I'm saying to all the different signs, 29 degrees of any planet of any sign can generate a sense of urgency within oneself. So in your 11th house, you may feel that there is a wish, there is a dream that you really need to, get your stuff together on. Perhaps it's a reality check. Perhaps you're thinking, okay, well, if I want this dream, if I want this wish to happen, I can't just fantasize about it with Neptune. I have to do something about it. I have to make something happen. I have to get a little bit practical. It might also be that you're realizing, in terms of the friends you surrounded yourself with, that perhaps the groups, the teams, the friendships are actually holding you back. Maybe you're surrounded by people who don't inspire you or do the opposite, and you might have a reality check on the different spaces that you're a part of as well, Taurus. Neptune retrograde can take off the rose-tinted glasses, and it can really give you a rude awakening to what it is that does need to change. And in your 11th house, that can be to do with your groups, your teams, the people you surround yourself with. But it can also be to do with your hopes and wishes for the future. So you may have a bit of a reality check there. And with Saturn retrograde in that sector as well, you might notice that the reality check is a little more sobering than usual, and you're thinking maybe, if you want to achieve a certain goal, you can't hang around in pubs every night, for example, with Piscean energy being here. But there are many other things happening this month as well. So we have a new moon in Cancer on the 5th in your 3rd house, and the sun is in Cancer until the 22nd. So with the sun going through your 3rd house, the new moon being there, this is a wonderful time to begin or initiate a writing project. This is a wonderful time to take a trip, take a road trip. This could be a wonderful time to get a new car. This could be a great time to have a reset when it comes to your relationship to a neighbour or a sibling, with this new moon being in Cancer. And being quite a nice new moon as well. It looks like there is a lovely new chapter having in your 3rd house, and this might also be a time when you get involved in your local neighbourhood, or you find yourself wanting to initiate something with your words, maybe initiate a conversation around this time, Taurus, that is important to you. And maybe this is going to change the way that you communicate in the future. The full moon on the 21st is happening in your 9th house. And this is an interesting one because not only is it happening at the anaretic degree of Capricorn, we had a full moon in Capricorn in June as well. So around the 21st, 22nd of June, what was going on for you? Was there any kind of storyline peaking? Because it might have some resonance with this full moon. With it being at the final degree of Capricorn, you may be wrapping up some kind of cycle, or there could be a turning point in your Capricorn house. So this may be surrounding your education, your higher education, if you're in university, if you're in college. This could be to do with publishing. This could be to do with your knowledge. This could be to do with your relationship to your faith, what you believe in, and the meaning of life in general may be something you're more interested in. And for some of you, Taurus, you could also be traveling around the time of this full moon, or maybe wrapping up a period of traveling at the time of this full moon as well. It is in a lovely sextile to Neptune and Pisces, so I do think you could be feeling quite supported at this time by groups of people or friendships under this full moon in whatever is peaking when it comes to your education, when it comes to knowledge, when it comes to information, or perhaps even traveling, Taurus. So we do have some energy happening in your 4th house this month as well. The sun enters your 4th house on the 22nd, but we have Venus enter your 4th house on the 11th, and Venus is your ruler. So this is putting a bit of the spotlight onto your home and your family situation. Some of you could be with Venus there, enjoying better relationships with your family. Some of you could be adding beautiful features, furnishings, finishing touches to your home, spending money on your home, trying to make it a more beautiful place to be, trying to improve the environment. And as I say, you can also enjoy some positive social experiences with your family as well. There's a caveat to this though, Taurus. Because Pluto is now in Aquarius, every time we have, Pluto's in the early degrees of Aquarius, is at 1 degree of Aquarius this month, you will notice that when the inner planets enter your 4th house, they start to oppose Pluto in your 10th. So there can be some power struggles going on this month with family. You may notice when Mercury opposes Pluto on the 3rd, in particular, there can be some power struggles when it comes to conversations. There can be some tough conversations coming up with family, perhaps. You may notice that on the 12th, that you may feel that there is some kind of relationship shadow playing out in an interaction with a family member. You might be noticing someone's shadow, or they might even be telling you what yours is with the Venus opposite Pluto. And on the 23rd, the Sun opposite Pluto can bring power struggles, particularly with a father or a male in the family, but it can also be in your career. You could be noticing that there is a bit of a power struggle going on with someone professionally around this time as well. Mercury is going to enter Virgo on the 25th. And pay attention to this because it is going to go retrograde in August. And when Mercury enters Virgo, we have this shadowy energy. So Mercury going into Virgo, your 5th house, you may be hearing from someone you used to date, someone you were romantically involved with, or you might be noticing that there's a dialogue coming up. If you have children with a child that's going to be reviewed, Mercury is going to retrograde back into Leo. Mercury enters Leo on the 2nd, as I say, that there's this opposition with Pluto. But Mercury will retrograde in your 4th house in August. So there can be some power struggles, there can be some tension coming up in July that could be repeated in August as well. So pay attention when it comes to family, particularly your children as well, with Mercury entering Virgo. Taurus, that is something to consider. There's a nice energy with Mars in your sign sextiling Saturn in your 11th on the 5th. I could see you committing to making something for yourself for the future, committing to a future goal. You might find yourself committing to a new friendship as well, or committing to a new team that feels quite mature. It feels quite grown up. With Neptune retrograde there, you're getting some reality checks. You might think around the time of the new moon in Cancer that, oh, I'm actually connecting to people that I think this is kind of a grounded friendship. This is a grounding friendship, and I think this could be a very positive one for me in the future, or in the long term, Taurus. But just to mention Mars as well. Obviously Mars is in your sign until the 20th. Mars goes into your 2nd house on the 20th. So Mars being in your sign will of course get off to a trine in Pluto in your 10th house. I'm not sure if I just said that right. Mars in your 2nd house is going to trine Pluto in your 10th as it enters your 2nd house. So that can look like you have more energy, you have more incentive to make money, to increase your finances. You might be making money through your words. You might be making money, because it's Gemini, making money through your words, see how you speak, how you communicate. Or you might be able to ask for a raise, ask for a pay rise. And you may be successful as Mars enters Gemini, because it is in a trine to Pluto in your 10th. So someone in a position of power may say, yes, actually, I think you do deserve this. Or you might feel inspired by someone in a position of power. Or you might notice that positive change in your career or more power in your career increases your finances for some of you around the 20th. But you may be more inclined to fight about money. You might be more inclined to fight with other people about your values, have arguments, have discord about money with other people as well, Taurus. Just watch for that with Mars entering your second house. That is what I have for you for July, Taurus. I hope you have a beautiful month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Gemini, welcome to July. I hope you're doing really well. So Gemini, just to cut right to the middle of the month, on the 20th, Mars is entering your sign. Now where Mars goes, energy and action and activity flow. And in your first house, this is to do with yourself. This is your physical body, it's your temperament, it's your approach to life, it's your personal goals. So you may feel that you're ready to take action on a personal goal. You may feel that you have more energy. Your energy levels are higher. You're hitting personal best when it comes to your runs or your workouts or whatever it is that you do for exercise, or whatever targets it is that you like to meet personally, your personal goals. You can feel this excess energy that you want to work with. I will say the downside of Mars being in your sign is it can make you more irritable, and this for you as Gemini energy can manifest as being verbally argumentative. There can be more verbal conflicts. You could be quick to say something and it perhaps hurts somebody's feelings, that type of things. So be mindful of that. It can be a war of words energy for everyone, but for you in particular, as it is your first house. This can also be where you perhaps push yourself a little bit too hard at times, so be careful of that lest you injure yourself. Mars does get off to a good start in Gemini because there's a trine to Pluto in your 9th house. So maybe you're taking action on a significant trip that you want to take, on changing your education, on your higher qualifications, your university, your college experiences. Maybe you're wanting to take action to make change there. It can also be that perhaps you're wanting to, with Pluto in your 9th house, you're exploring different spiritual topics and you're opening up your mind to different avenues in terms of your belief systems, and that's where you're feeling the most profound change with Pluto and the transformation. With this trine from Mars in your first house, you're taking action towards these things. So we'll back up a little bit to the start of the month. Neptune is going retrograde at 29 degrees of Pisces on the 2nd, and Saturn in June went retrograde on the 29th in this sector for you. So we're looking now at your professional life, your career path, your purpose, your reputation, your achievements, and your public life effectively. Neptune going retrograde here, aside from the fact we already have Saturn retrograde here, it can have a bit of a sobering effect. It's a reality check. It's saying, okay, when it comes to your career, your personal path, what's going on there? Are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Are you aligned? What responsibilities are you avoiding? What are you denying? What are you trying to escape? Have you built yourself a career that you want to escape from? So you're looking at your career a little more soberly. This can be sometimes you're looking at it too soberly, to the fact that you're maybe not seeing the bigger picture, you're maybe not seeing the potential, but you're able to get a bit of a reality check on what this looks like, and maybe you're thinking, okay, well, now I know how I feel about it, now I know what it looks like, I know what I have to change. So with Neptune and Saturn both retrograde in this sector, it's time to review your career. So what is it that you need to change? Where can you take off the rose-tinted glasses? Where can you see things a little bit more clearly? I think with Neptune being at the crisis degree of Pisces, you may be perhaps having a sense of urgency that you need to make these changes. And what's interesting about this sector for you, Gemini, is that we will have a Piscean eclipse in September. So it feels as though change is coming in your career. And Neptune is the modern ruler of your 10th house, so you're really revisiting career-wise what this looks like for you in the long term, where you've become disillusioned with perhaps a fantasy or something that you are escaping from, and you're looking at it a little bit soberly and understanding what does need to change, because change is coming. So the parts of your career that you feel dissatisfied with, change is afoot, and you may be feeling the call on a soul level to look again at it. So, your ruler Mercury enters Leo on the 2nd of July and enters Virgo on the 25th. These two signs are important because Mercury is going to go retrograde in Virgo, but retrograde back into Leo. So, particularly from the 25th, when Mercury enters Virgo, pay attention to the details. Double check the details when it comes to anything that you're planning with your family or with your home. Not a good time from the 25th to get work done on your home, to employ people to work on your home, contracts, anything like that, because they're likely going to need to be reinvestigated, redone, or there can be a lot of miscommunication and error, so be careful with that. If you're making plans with your family, the key is to check the details. Virgo is detail oriented. And Mercury being in Leo is putting a focus on how you communicate in general. It's your 3rd house. So there's the potential going forward, particularly into August, for miscommunication with family, for matters around the home, and siblings as well, and neighbours. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. We have a lot of the inner planets, so Mercury, Venus, and the Sun entering your 3rd house. The Sun enters your 3rd house on the 22nd, and this is going to put a significant spotlight on your local neighbourhood, your relationship to your neighbours. It can be travel, short-term travel, short distance, your local haunts, places you go regularly. It can also be your car. And it can be perhaps your relationship to your siblings, as I said, or your neighbours. But the thing about this is that we have the oppositions to Pluto in Aquarius for the first time. So since Pluto entered Aquarius, we haven't had much activity going on with the Leo side of things, and now we're starting to get a flavour of that in July. So it starts off on the 2nd, Mercury, your ruler, in your 3rd house, is going to oppose Pluto in your 9th house. There can be a power struggle with someone else in terms of beliefs, in terms of knowledge, in terms of information. You could be having a conflict with somebody and you could both be very stubborn on what the truth is, what the reality is, what the details are. So watch out for that day. It's not a great day for communication. Things just come to a standstill. It's quite hard to marry the opposing forces. It's quite hard to see eye to eye. I think in a conversation, one of you may be seeing things quite logically and the other person might be trying to see things from a bigger perspective. One's focused on the details, one's focused on the bigger picture. And if you can successfully marry the two, wonderful. If not, you could find yourself at loggerheads with somebody that just feels like a complete power struggle. On the 11th, Venus enters your 3rd house, and Venus entering the 3rd house is lovely for your local neighborhood, for neighborhood interactions, getting involved in your community and having nice interactions with people on a regular basis. So say you go to your local coffee place, you have a really nice conversation with the barista, and you can find as well that just generally your routines, your everyday commutes, there can be opportunities for positive connections with other people. Except for the 12th, when Venus is opposing Pluto in the 9th, you may find that there's a power struggle or control issues coming up with a neighbour or someone on the road or a sibling. There can be a bit of frustration coming up there and a little bit of shadowy activity in a key relationship in your life. You might be more aware of someone's shadow, of their dark side around the 12th. That's just a tricky date to watch out for, Gemini. And then on the 23rd as well, the Sun in your 3rd house opposing Pluto in your 9th can bring tension and quite heated interactions, I think, with when it comes to people's egos. There's ego conflicts, and you might feel a little bit put out by somebody who's trying to gain the upper hand on you in a conversation, Gemini. So be mindful of that. When it comes to communication this month, there can be a little bit of tension. It can be a bit frustration, and things can really feel quite stubborn and unproductive at times when it comes to communication. and people trying to test you is one way to look at this. On the 5th of July, there is a new moon in your second house, and this is a lovely time for new beginnings financially. Maybe you're getting a promotion, maybe you're setting a savings goal. This is a great time to plant seeds and set intentions when it comes to your wealth, when it comes to security. Mars is in a sextile to Saturn under the time of this new moon, and I think a lot of you could be thinking about, perhaps with your career, focusing on wanting a little bit of room to make changes career-wise in the future. Maybe some of you are setting up a savings account so that you can have a bit of wiggle room to figure things out in the future if you need to leave your job. But maybe also just for some of you, you're figuring out what is important to you and setting the intention to focus more on that going forward. This is quite a nice new moon, particularly because it has connections to Venus. And from a financial standpoint, Gemini, this can be a lovely time to set financial intentions, to start a savings account, to start a financial goal for yourself, because it can grow. This is a lovely new moon to set that intention and to get very clear on what it is that you want. And with it being in the sign of Cancer, I feel like for a lot of you, maybe it's a nest egg. Maybe you're wanting something for home or family purposes in the future, money-wise. But there can be a new beginning financially as well. Maybe if you're self-employed, you're wanting to change your rates or something like that. Now, there's a full moon in Capricorn on the 21st. It's also at the anaretic degree. This is important because it does bring a sense of urgency or wrapping up of a particular cycle. Now, if you pay attention to what was going on around the time of the full moon in June, so around the 19th to the 22nd of June, what was coming up for you in your 9th house story, which is Capricorn for you, or 8th house story, apologies Gemini, 8th house story, which is Capricorn for you. So the 8th house is to do with emotionally speaking, it can be to do with your baggage, your trauma, your past. It can be to do with loss that you've incurred. So from an emotional standpoint, this can be where perhaps you're finding some tough emotions come to the surface that you want to deal with, stuff that goes way back and you may have inherited, or inherited emotionally comes under the 8th house as well, not just financial inheritance. And the full moon in Capricorn in June, Saturn was direct, and Saturn was direct in your 10th house. So you may have been in a position where you're thinking, okay, well, this sort of stuff bothers me, but it's not shaping me professionally. With Saturn retrograde at the time of this full moon, you might actually think, wait a minute. This stuff that happened in the past is actually shaping me in my career. This has put me down a particular path. I need to change this, or I need to address this. You may feel like you need to address something from a psychological standpoint, or work through something or deal with something emotionally at this time to set yourself up better for the future, Gemini. This can also be where it comes to joint financial resources. Perhaps something is coming up with a partner's money. Maybe there's a change there with your partner or your spouse's finances. Or perhaps under this full moon you're getting a mortgage or you're getting a loan. Some of you might be finally clearing away some debt as well, with this full moon being at the 29th degree. And Pluto is going to retrograde back to 29 degrees of Capricorn in September until November. So do pay attention emotionally to what's coming up for you at this time, because you might be readdressing it and really working through some deep stuff, Gemini, believe it or not. Some stuff that kind of triggers you, some stuff that you feel you were trying not to be bothered with, but you want to address it. You start to feel it goes a little bit deeper. So you might be working through some stuff as well. Gemini, the cycle just never ends. But they can be quite intense full moons in the 8th house. So be gentle with yourself. Take good care of yourself with the full moon as well. With the 8th house, sometimes you can find a bit of, you can actually enjoy good mysteries around the time of the full moon. So maybe you go to a murder mystery party and you have to solve the case, or you're playing Cluedo. It's good to put your investigative mind to use under the full moon and really solve some mysteries or riddles in your life. I see that come up so often with 8th house transits. So, you know, if it's not financial, if it's not to do with loans, mortgages, if it's not to do with inheritance or inherited trauma or emotional baggage, you could simply be playing Cluedo. Astrology is, you know, it's a spectrum of things. So other things that we have happening for you this month, Gemini, that are worth mentioning. We have a Mars-Uranus conjunction on the 15th in your 12th house. You might have some very crazy dreams. Some of you might find that you unexpectedly, and this is very strange, you unexpectedly move in your sleep with Mars conjunct Uranus, or something happens in the middle of the night that wakes you up. Maybe something happens, you get a phone call that wakes you up in the middle of the night because one of your friends is out and has done something crazy. Mars rules your 11th house. You might find that you wake up from the most unusual dream. You might have a eureka moment or an epiphany in a dream with the Mars-Uranus conjunction in your 12th house. It can also be a time when you have a spiritual breakthrough. Something that you've been bothered by, that you've been trying to figure out, finally makes sense for you, Gemini. And you might also find that if you've had a self-sabotaging habit or belief, you feel under this conjunction that maybe you can conquer it and break this cycle. So that is what I have for you, Gemini. I hope you have a great month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Cancer, welcome to your July horoscope, and a very happy birthday to all the Cancerians celebrating in July. So Cancer, there's a lot of focus, particularly in the first 21, 22 days of the month, because the sun will be in your sign, and we also have a new moon in your sign, so the focus is very much on the self. There is some element of consideration for your significant relationships, though, with the full moon, the second of 2 full moons in Capricorn, the first having occurred in June. So let's get into this. There's a huge focus on your relationship to yourself. This new moon in Cancer that's happening on the 5th is really beautiful for you. It's quite close to Venus, which means that there's an element of love and beauty connected to this new moon. And with it happening in your first house, for a lot of you that looks like it is a commitment to a personal goal, something for you, something for yourself, something that maybe you do solo. A personal goal that you really want to achieve, something that you may be doing on your own, or something that really helps you form a stronger connection to yourself, or a stronger relationship with yourself, or a stronger sense of self in general. This is a beautiful new moon to make a decision or a vision board about what you want your life to look like, what you want to achieve. It may also be a reset in your relationship to your body. So whether that is that you're thinking, okay, I want to start going to the gym more, I want to start moving more, walking more, swimming more, or whether it is that you want to do something for your physical aesthetic, whether that's get a haircut, add a few new pieces to your wardrobe. There really is a beautiful connection to yourself around the time of this new moon, and I suggest doing something nice for you, something treating yourself, Cancer, around the new moon in your sign. Mercury is in your sign until the 2nd, but Mercury then enters your 2nd house of Leo and forms an opposition to Pluto in your 8th house. There could be a power struggle around the 2nd when it comes to money, when it comes to finances, or there could be a little bit of a tug of war with someone else when it comes to money and finances. It's not the best day for calm, centered conversations because there can be a bit of pride and drama in the mix around the 2nd of July. If we hop back to the 1st of July, or the 2nd of July again, but at the beginning of the month, Neptune is going to go retrograde in Pisces in your 9th house, and this can bring some reality checks. With Neptune being at the anaretic degree, there can be a bit of a sense of crisis or urgency when it comes to perhaps your university or higher education studies. So if you're in university, you might be doing your finals, and this Neptune retrograde is saying, okay, I really need to get serious about this. I can't party as much. I need to study to get this degree. For some of you, it might be surrounding travel or living abroad, and you might be deciding, okay, well, I have to, if I want to live here next year, if I want to move here permanently, I'm going to have to start figuring out visas and things like that. There's a sense of getting serious and having some reality checks rather than things just being a beautiful fantasy or something that you can't quite hold just yet. It's about making it real, particularly with Saturn retrograde in that same sector. So that's going to be happening on the 2nd, and of course this is a longer moving transit, Cancer, but you're also going to find that around the 2nd you might have some dreams or unusual synchronicities that point you in the direction of where you may need a bit of a reality check. There is some financial improvement with Venus moving into your 2nd house in the 11th. This can be a lovely time to attract more money, more abundance to you. But as with any of the inner planets moving into the sign of Leo at the moment, they are going to get into an opposition with Pluto. And Venus opposes Pluto on the 12th. So again, there can be power struggles when it comes to money. Money that you're making versus money that you owe. You may find that if you're increasing, your finances, perhaps this then means that you're going to have to declare something tax-wise. Pluto going through the 8th, it can be very tricky if you've been doing something, financially. You need to be very transparent with your finances with Pluto going through the 8th, because Pluto is such a detective, it's such an investigator. And this can, of course, mean that in some cases the investigation can be into money that you're owed. But I would say with this opposition, just be mindful that when it comes to your money versus money you owe someone else, or where you're joint financially, there can be a bit of a tug of war when it comes to who has what with that opposition on the 12th. But Venus being in your 2nd house from the 11th until the end of the month does bode well for attracting more money, attracting gifts, attracting abundance, and also finding things that you want to spend money on as well, things that you like, Cancer. On the 20th, Mars is going to enter your 12th house. It's going to join Jupiter there. The connection between the two planets, Mars and Jupiter, oh my gosh, sorry, fly just flew in the window. Give me a fright. The connection between, and he's gone. The connection between Mars and Jupiter doesn't happen officially until August, but Mars being in this sector for you, a lot of the time with Mars transiting the 12th, we can feel at times a little bit, from a psychological perspective, we can feel a little bit triggered by things and not quite understand why. So someone can say something, you're feeling fine, someone says something, and then you feel really off and you can't pinpoint it. Mars going through the 12th is kind of, it flows energy through your subconscious. So it means that you can feel a little bit more on edge, a little bit more sensitive. With it being Gemini, it can be because of words that are said, impulsive words, hurt feelings through verbal comments, for example. But Mars going through the 12th, you can have a lot of fights internally. There can be an internal dialogue going on that is not so friendly with Mars being there. The pen is mightier than the sword with Gemini, so you might find that in terms of getting through anything that is irking you or disturbing you, writing it down, journaling can be very productive for you. With Mars going through the 12th, sometimes it can bring bad dreams, sometimes it can bring nightmares, sometimes it can also bring the desire to take action on something that you have been avoiding, from an emotional standpoint. And Mars going through this sector means that you may find your energy levels are a little bit low. You need to sleep a little bit more. You need to take a bit more rest here and there. It doesn't mean that you're just, tired the whole time, but it just means the energy can dip because your body is trying to process, trying to heal maybe some things emotionally. And that can be exhausting as well, Cancer. So just be mindful of that. Before Mars does enter your 12th house, Mars is going through your 11th. And we'll connect with Uranus on the 15th. So there could be perhaps on the 15th something unexpected coming up with a friend, a shocking action or change within a team that you're a part of, within a group that you're a part of. There could be an impulsive moment leads to significant change if you do something impulsively. Particularly groups that you work with career-wise, as Mars rules your 10th, be mindful of taking any sudden action, of doing something out of left field. It may disturb a team or it may disturb a group. Maybe disturb isn't the right word. It's more shock. It's more surprise. There can be something shocking occurring around the 15th. Something surprising within a group or a team. It can also be something shocking on social media, with it being the 11th house. But it may also be a case where you actually have a breakthrough on what needs to be done, what change needs to occur within a group or a team, Cancer. Now, on the 21st, we have the full moon in your 7th house of relationships. So this is relationships in general, but it does tend to focus on your significant other romantically, your partner, your spouse. It can be a business partner as well. It's at the anaretic degree of Capricorn, which again brings a sense of urgency, wanting to make changes. Maybe for some of you, you and a partner are relocating with the ruler of this full moon, Saturn, retrograde in your 9th house, and you're maybe thinking, okay, we need to get this in order. Cancer, it may be that there's a disagreement about where you want to live or where you want to travel, or how maybe one partner studying is affecting the other. But overall, this is shining a light on your relationships, how you feel about them, what needs to change, what old patterns and behaviours can be released within relationships in your life, and how you relate to others with this full moon. The full moon does have a lovely sextile to Neptune, which is also retrograde in your 9th house. So you may be finding that whatever the changes, you are able to tap into a little bit of, it's a little bit easier to tap into unconditional love, compassion, acceptance. But this may be a time in a relationship where maybe, you're going official, you're getting married, you're getting engaged. And for some of you that are single, you may meet someone under this full moon as well. With the sextile to Neptune, could be somebody who's from abroad, from overseas, or you meet while traveling. The sun enters your 2nd house on 22nd, putting a lot more focus onto your finances, Cancer. How you want to make your money, the way that you make money. The sun, by nature, loves being in Leo, so you're shining a spotlight on your finances, maybe getting your accounts into order, looking at your spending, what you're spending money on, and this will be something in August that you review, so do pay attention, because Mercury will retrograde back into that sector and cover some ground. So on the 25th, Mercury enters your 3rd house, which is usually pretty good for communication, with it being in Virgo, focusing on the details, finding it easier to find the right words to express what you want to say, getting the details right. The thing about this is that Mercury will retrograde in August, so some of the details that come up, some of the plans that are made, some things happening in your local community, some things happening with siblings or your neighbours, these details, pay attention to them, write them down, screenshot them if you need to, so that if there is miscommunication later, you have the receipts, you have the details, because there might be some details to be hashed over in those areas, Cancer, in July. On the 23rd, the sun in your 2nd house opposes Pluto in your 8th, and there is a lot of tension this day, particularly in terms of financial matters, in terms of your money, Cancer. So do watch out for that. There could be some changes that need to occur. There could be power struggles occurring. Be mindful of manipulation in a financial relationship. With the sun being in Leo, things can actually be a little bit more dramatic than they need to be as well. So try and remain calm if there is tension on that day. So that is what I have for you, Cancer. I hope you have a beautiful month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Leo, welcome to July, and a very happy birthday to all the Leos that are celebrating their birthday in July. So Leo, this month is kind of split in two, because in the first half of the month you may be feeling quite sleepy, you may be feeling quite introverted, you might be wanting to go into hermit mode and really look inward. You could be finding yourself a little bit more emotional at times, a little bit more withdrawn, a little bit more introverted. And that's because the sun is moving through Cancer until the 22nd of July. So when the sun moves through your 12th house, especially as the sun is your ruler, you may just be feeling a little bit like you want to spend some time alone, you want to cocoon, you want to be more introspective, to journal, to reflect, to meditate, to sleep, to dream journal. your inner world is very rich and very active, and so it can make you a bit less interested in socializing with other people. Leo, especially, with Venus being in Cancer as well until the 12th, where you're going to feel most love, most joy is going to be when you're by yourself, when you're cocooning, when you're resting, when you're wrapped up in a duvet watching a movie or something like that. And there's a new moon in this sector on the 5th, and it is connected to Venus. So you might find around the 5th that there's a new beginning in the way that you approach your inner world. Some of you may be deciding you want to heal something, you want to begin the process of letting go, a catharsis emotionally. You might be looking to begin something spiritual. So perhaps you're wanting to have a reset with your spiritual routine, meditating, journaling, praying. Perhaps some of you are wanting to take a retreat around this time, go on a retreat, spend time in nature, spend time away from the grind, and just focusing more on your inner world and your inner connection. Now, it doesn't mean you won't have anything to say, because Mercury does enter your sign in the 2nd. And you may find that from a mental perspective, you're really thinking a lot about yourself. And I don't mean that in a selfish way, but Mercury will retrograde back into your sign in August. So when it comes to how you communicate to others, but also how you communicate to yourself, and that includes how you think, your thought patterns, it's all up for review. So you might be noticing the way that you speak to yourself, the way that you communicate to others, and if that is actually effective for you, or if that can be causing a little bit more problems. Because sometimes when we don't say what we mean, it can lead to resentment, it can lead to internalized feelings that actually affect us in an unhelpful way. Instead of just saying the thing, sometimes it can do more damage than it's worth. So just an example of how that could be playing out for you. You might be realizing, okay, well, if I had actually just said something, I would feel much better right now. So you're reflecting on your communication, Leo. And you're reflecting on how you communicate to others, but also how you communicate to yourself. And you might find, you might find in the first 22 days, you'd rather say nothing in a lot of cases. Although Venus does enter your sign in the 11th, and this is a beautiful time for feeling, loved, feeling appreciated. You're more attractive to romance, you're more attractive to love, you're more attractive to gifts, to money. People want to give you things, and there's an increase in romantic energy in your life. And that doesn't just have to be a romantic relationship, but an increase in romance and wanting to be seen. You may feel more inclined to be seen once Venus moves into your sign. The difficulty with this is that Venus, almost immediately, the day after Venus moves into your sign, there's an opposition with Pluto in your sector of partnerships. So there's a few days this month where there can be power struggles between you and a significant other, a romantic partner, a relationship, or a business partner, someone you work with one-on-one. There can be power struggles going on, and this can be because of what is best for you with Venus, what you feel is best for you, what you feel best about, versus the change that someone else is trying to enact, the change that someone else is trying to make, or the power that they're trying to have. And this is also happening. Sorry, I have an aligner in my mouth. It is kind of hard to speak. This is also happening with Mercury in your sign, opposing Pluto in the 3rd. This is tricky too, because there can be power struggle conversations happening around that time too, where you're trying to communicate and someone else is saying something quite shadowy, or something that comes out of nowhere, or something that you weren't expecting them to say, or changes that they're making behind the scenes even, with Pluto in your relationship sector. So the 3rd and the 12th, but also the 23rd with the Sun in your sign opposite Pluto. The 23rd looks to be potentially, Leo, a power struggle between you and an authority figure. But there is opportunities here for power struggles with significant others in relationships. And basically, the key is, Leo, with Pluto across from you in the sky, to know what you need, to know who you are, to know what you want, and to know where you will and will not compromise, or where you will stick up for yourself against people or situations or organizations that try to control you in a way that doesn't work for you, with Pluto opposing you. Pluto in the 7th house can sometimes come up as adversaries who push you, and what it is that you will and will not accept may change because of this. So be mindful of that. There can be some power struggles this month. So stand firm, stand in your power, and don't let yourself be manipulated, Leo. But also don't be too stubborn where you could possibly change and you sense that a bit of change might actually be better for you. Okay, so there can be difficulty compromising this month. Mars connects with Uranus in your 10th house and the 15th, and there can be explosive and shocking developments happening in your career. There can be something changing career-wise. There can be an unexpected development and unexpected action from a boss. There can be a surprising out of nowhere confrontation in the workplace. This can also be, in a more positive sense, where you have a breakthrough on what you need to do work-wise or professionally on the 15th. But be very careful of taking, action in anger at work around the 15th. 14th, 15th, 16th, if you're feeling angry, step out of the office. Mars enters Gemini on the 20th, and this is joining Jupiter in your 11th house. They connect officially in August. But you might find that you, from a social standpoint, at times friends could be more irritating, social groups could be more irritating, there could be conflict within a group. You can find that you're fighting with friends, maybe when you wouldn't ordinarily, because Mars can be a bit of an aggressor. But similarly, Mars in the 11th can also be where you feel more called to take action on a social issue, on a humanitarian issue, something that you feel really matters, and Mars gives you the desire to fight for maybe a group of people, to fight for a cause or something like that as well when Mars enters Gemini on the 20th, and will continue into next month. So that is something that's happening for you. You might even find that a partnership supports you in doing that, because Mars will get into a trine with Pluto in your partnership sector. There's a full moon in Capricorn on the 21st, Leo. And for you, this is really highlighting your day-to-day work, your health, your wellness. And I will say, obviously, Pluto has been covering this degree a little bit for a long time. Pluto's now in Aquarius, but will retrograde back onto this degree September to November for the final time in our lifetimes. There can be some health crises that needs to be attended to, needing to look after your health, needing to look after your wellness, needing to focus on these areas, make changes in these areas. And this full moon can highlight the changes that you want to make. 29 degrees can bring about a sense of urgency. It says something's got to change with the way that you work, your routine. You might find that something comes up that is going to change your routine, and you're going to have to figure out how to accommodate that with the full moon being in Capricorn. This can also be where some of you get a promotion, you change job, you leave a job, a co-worker is leaving your workplace. You might be achieving a fitness or health goal around the time of this full moon as well, Leo. And the sun enters your sign on the 22nd. It's your season. All is well. Except for the fact that the sun opposes Pluto on the 23rd. And again, there's a power struggle between you and someone else, and it really does feel like you're holding your ground and you're saying, this is what I need, this is what I want. And someone else is saying, okay, but we have to change this, maybe for the sake of a group or for the sake of a team, and you're saying no. And there's a power struggle there. There's tension there, Leo. Mercury is going to enter your second house on the 25th, and there will be retrograde activity here in August. So anything that's coming up, pay attention to conversations, because particularly the details, and this is to do with your money. So pay attention to where you're spending money. Keep an eye on your bank account. When Mercury goes retrograde, and Mercury will be in shadow at the end of the month, go retrograde in August. But when Mercury goes retrograde in your second house, I will say, please do pay attention to your online banking. Mercury is the trickster. So people can try and scam you. People can try and hit you up for information. Be careful with that. Check what you're spending money on. Watch it more carefully. Pay attention to the details. If you're signing up to anything financially, pay attention to any subscription fees, any terms and conditions that you might not notice. Pay attention to those with your money, because they will be important later, Leo. So that is what I have for you for July. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Virgo, welcome to July. So Virgo, I want to start off with Neptune retrograde, because Neptune is going retrograde on the 2nd of July and going retrograde in your partnership and relationship sector. And Saturn went retrograde on the 29th of June. So we have two of the big outer planets retrograde in your relationship sector. Neptune is at the crisis degree. Something needs to change when it comes to your relationships, and you may need, with both Saturn retrograde and Neptune retrograde, a reality check. You might need to see things a little bit more logically or from a more realistic standpoint when it comes to a relationship, a partnership in your life. It doesn't have to be romantic, but it certainly can be for a lot of you. So this can look like being a little bit more logical about, say, with some of you planning weddings, with Saturn being in your 7th house now, being a little bit more logical or getting a reality check about what that's going to cost. For some of you, it can be that maybe you're getting a reality check on what it is that you need to change in order to find or attract a healthy relationship. Neptune can be very escapist, so sometimes when Neptune's going through the 7th, the partners that come about can be Neptunian, so they can be elusive, they can be magical, but they can also be quite escapist or non-committal. Or if you're approaching relationships from that energy, it can be a time to really say, okay, I don't want to do this anymore, I need to change something. So there can be a bit of a reality check when it comes to your relationships this month. For some of you, that could be quite sobering and quite difficult. And for others of you, it could be simply getting to grips with what actually needs to be done, what is realistic for the relationship itself. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Virgo, next month, Mercury, your ruler, is going to go retrograde in your sign. So Mercury does enter your sign on the 25th. And this is a really good time for you to do an inventory of the details of what it is that you're doing for you, your personal goals, your personal achievements, how you communicate, how you think. These are all up for review. So if you are thinking in a way that is actually quite unproductive to your relationship to yourself, if you're thinking in a way that is actually quite unhealthy for your sense of self and personal autonomy, this is the time to focus on where you're maybe letting yourself down in your communication, where you're maybe not standing up for yourself, where you're maybe not speaking for yourself, advocating for yourself. And there's going to be things that you say from the 25th onwards that you might have to clarify later. So you might find yourself going over the same old story for July and August, is having to say the same thing, having to explain what you meant, having to explain the details. So try to pay attention to the details, make things as clear and concise as possible in any communication, particularly from the 25th. From the 2nd until the 25th, we have Mercury in your 12th house. And Mercury going through the 12th house can often be a time where we say less. We don't tend to say very much. We tend to be a little bit more introverted. You might find yourself thinking about matters in a more private way. You don't necessarily want to share details, discuss things as much. You might be thinking more about the spiritual. You might be thinking about more behind the scenes activities, things that you're perhaps keeping secret for whatever reason. It can also be a time where perhaps people are sharing secrets with you, with Mercury being in the 12th house. There is an oppositional energy between the Leo placements and Pluto in Aquarius this month. So a few dates I want to mention. Mercury in your 12th house on the 2nd is opposing Pluto in your 6th house. There can be a power struggle at work. There can be a power struggle when it comes to someone who's being shady or secretive or manipulative. And you can really feel quite frustrated on the 2nd. You can find that people in the workplace or people that people that you work with are maybe a little bit more Plutonian. So there are power struggles. They're trying to wield power over you. People are clutching for power. Your workplace could feel a little bit like Game of Thrones at times this month with the oppositions, but it can be a case where you're trying to discuss something with someone and you get this sense intuitively that they're not telling you the truth, that they're not giving you the whole picture around the 2nd. They may be being a bit dramatic as well, like embellishing what they're saying. On the 11th, Venus is in your 12th house, and then on the 12th will oppose Pluto as well. And there is again this sense, particularly with people that you work with, that there may be secrets coming out in the workplace. There may be some truth that comes to the head that is tricky, that is dramatic. that is covert as well. It's almost like covert drama. It is it's very Game of Thrones, very Cloak and Daggers. And the Sun opposes Pluto on the 23rd. So those dates, the 3rd, the 12th, and the 23rd, can see power struggles when it comes to your work, your workplace. It can also be power struggles with someone from a health perspective. So maybe a doctor, a dentist, a nutritionist, a personal trainer. You could be feeling a little bit like you're not being heard, or that something is going on behind the scenes, or they're missing something, or you're not getting the full picture. But with a lot of activity in your 12th this month, you're sort of, things aren't obvious, things aren't out in the open a lot of the time, Virgo. So be careful with that. Be mindful that if your intuition is telling you something's off, it very well may be, but those days are not the best days for getting to the root of anything, for getting movement, because the oppositional energy is quite hard to balance. So do watch for power struggles when it comes to your work, and when it comes to your workplace this month, Virgo. There's a new moon in Cancer happening on the 5th, and this is cute. Up until the 22nd, we have the Sun in Cancer, and then we have the new moon there on the 5th, which is activating your 11th house of friendships and social connections. So there may be something happening around the 5th. Socially, you could have a party to attend, a gathering to go to, and you might find around this time that you are making new friends, or you're connecting very well with friends, particularly women. You may be attending a social event and having a really good time, Virgo. You might come across very popular at this event with the connection to Venus. You might be feeling very social. So do try and accept as many social events as you can, particularly before the 11th, with Venus being in your sign, not your sign, sorry, your 11th house, Cancer. So Virgo, you might find that you're getting invited to more events, you're getting on better with people in your life that you're friends with, that you're in a team with, you're in a group with, and there can be some really positive interactions where you feel really loved and appreciated by the people that you're socializing with, the teams that you're a part of and you're connected to. And there can be new people entering the picture around the 5th, friendship wise or group wise or team wise as well, or a new chapter beginning with a friend or a team in your life, Virgo. Mars connects with Uranus on the 15th in your 9th house. If you're traveling, there can be an unexpected event or disruption or change. This can also be in higher education. If you're at university, if you're in college, you might find that there's an unexpected event happens. Be careful on the 15th of being too impulsive or acting too reactively in those areas. So at college or while you're traveling. Just be mindful that there can be a bit of expect the unexpected, and take extra care when traveling if you are traveling on the 15th, Virgo. You might also have an unexpected opportunity to go somewhere too with that conjunction. It can also be that from a spiritual perspective, in terms of your belief systems, you might have a bit of a breakthrough and a bit of an epiphany on what it is that you believe in, or what it is that you want to explore, or where you want to explore as well. Mars enters your 10th house on the 20th, and this is important because Jupiter is already there. They connect officially in August though, but Mars going in here is going to ramp up the energy to succeed, to reach the top, to meet your goals. It's very career focused, but this means that it can also be a place, your career, your workplace, or your bosses, or your authority figures. These can be places where there's anger, there's tension, or there's frustration, and you might feel a little bit frustrated with your boss, angry at your boss. There can be confrontation, or just in the workplace in general, there can be a bit of confrontation this month. I must warn you. Forearmed is forewarned, or forewarned is forearmed, Virgo. Sorry, I've been traveling all day and I'm so my brain is just not working. Mars in the 10th, it can be great for pushing forward in your career, but it can also bring confrontation at the same time. So be mindful of that. You can find that you have a more irritable boss, or you can just find the people that you work with. You might notice more verbal sparring matches going on, a bit of workplace drama, especially with people saying things that could be quite bitchy with Mars being in Gemini. So you might notice that. The full moon in Capricorn on the 21st. So if you think back to the 20th, 21st, 22nd of June. We have a full moon in your 5th house, what was going on around that time. This can bring up matters of pregnancy, of births. You might find out someone's pregnant, you might find out someone's giving birth. You can find out you're pregnant, or that this can be a time when you're giving birth. I mean, you would already know if you were giving birth, I imagine, but this can be a time when you find out that you've conceived with full moons in the 5th, but it absolutely doesn't have to be that. It can be that you have a creative idea that you're wanting to birth into the world. You could be attending, you know, an open mic, or you could be attending a concert, doing something creative, something fun around this time. It could be a fun party that you're going to. And if you're single, this can be a time when you meet somebody, because this full moon in the 5th is sextiling Neptune in the 7th. So you could find yourself falling in love or meeting someone in a romantic capacity at the time of this full moon as well, Virgo. Full moons at the crisis degree can mean that you're wrapping up a chapter and you're ready to change something. It's pretty close to Pluto, so it feels as though with Pluto retrograding back to this particular degree of Capricorn from September to November, you might notice what's happening under this full moon is a theme around those months. You can also be wrapping up a chapter with, you know, a child in your life. Perhaps there's something happening with them. Maybe they're graduating. Maybe they're moving from, you know, elementary school to high school if you're in the States, or primary school to high school here. Or, you know, you're wrapping up a difficult chapter with a child as well. And you're finding that there's a bit more peace, perhaps, or you've figured out what needs to change when it comes to your children, or when it comes even to your romantic dating life. Maybe you're figuring out if there's been a pattern that's been holding you back, how to release that, Virgo. But it can be very romantic, this full moon. I do feel like there could be, for a lot of you, something lovely happening in your love life. Whether that's you're meeting someone or something is changing. And it might be quite profound change as well with the connection to Pluto, Virgo. The Sun enters your 12th house on the 22nd. This makes you feel a little bit more introspective. This makes you feel a little bit more hermity. You might want to spend more time in your bed, on your couch with duvets, resting, relaxing. You might find yourself feeling a bit more run down and needing to take care of yourself and taking a step back from maybe some additional responsibilities or duties, Virgo. That can be something that's happening to you around that time too. As I mentioned before, Mercury entering your sign on the 25th. This is the time when you might be finding that you have the words, you have the details, but do be mindful that you may need to explain the same thing later. You know, you might have to go over old conversations again in August. So pay attention to what you're saying. Take a bit more care with what you're saying, because, you know, the details will really matter from the 25th onwards, Virgo. So that's what I have for you. There's a lot of focus on being more social this month. There can be a bit of power struggle, power dynamics going on in the workplace that are a bit tricky, maybe with an employee, with a co-worker, with a colleague. You might find yourself having to stand in your power and assert yourself. Be mindful of people in the workplace trying to manipulate you. Be mindful of confrontation with a boss or an authority figure, and also try to be a bit more realistic when it comes to any partnership that you're engaged with, whether that is romantic or business. You might need to look at it from a more realistic perspective, and you may also find love or romance is flowing around the 21st of July. That is what I have for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Libra, welcome to July 2024. This is your horoscope. So Libra, this month we happen to have quite a bit of focus on your professional life, and there may be a new chapter unfolding in that area of life for you. So it can be professional, it can be career related, but it can also be to do with a long-term goal or objective that you have for yourself, or some kind of purpose that you feel drawn to. The reason that there's a new beginning here is because we have a lovely new moon in Cancer on the 5th, and this is actually quite close to your ruler Venus. So you may feel inspired to branch out on your own professionally, maybe to be a bit more independent. For some of you, that could also be working with family, because it's in the sign of Cancer, or working with a family member. But it can be more so that you're really figuring about what it is that you want to achieve, what it is you want to do, and what gives you a sense of confidence and a sense of purpose. So maybe you're applying for new jobs, maybe you're starting a new job, maybe you have a new professional role that you're doing in your job, or maybe you're adding a service to your business. Whatever that looks like for you, Libra, this is a really good time to figure out what your goals are and what you'd like to achieve for yourself in the next 6 months. With this new moon being in your 10th house, and the sun is in your 10th house until the 22nd, so it's likely to be a time with a lot of focus on your job, on your professional life, or some kind of goal that you want to achieve, or goals that you want to achieve. And you may also be finding that you're more in the public eye than usual. Even if you already are in the public eye, you might be recognized for something you do work-wise. The spotlight might be on you for your job. You might have an opportunity to go into something on television or in the paper or something like that with this lovely energy in your 10th house. Now, in terms of the work and the services that you provide, though, there's a bit of a reality check when it comes to perhaps the services that you offer, your day job, your relationship to co-workers, your relationship to your employees. If you have been avoidant or a little bit rose-tinted in this sector of life, you may be in for a bit of a reality check with Neptune going retrograde on the 2nd. This is a time to maybe in terms of your working relationships or a colleague or a co-worker, to maybe see things a little bit more clearly, to recommit if you've been failing to meet your commitments, because Saturn is retrograde in this sector as well for the whole of July, went retrograde in June. So when it comes to your work, there is a bit of a reality check. You may need to reevaluate your commitments, what you're capable of, what you're giving, what you're not giving, where you've maybe become avoidant with Neptune, or maybe where you have been not meeting expectations. And the opposite is true if you have been working really hard with Saturn being in your 6th house. This may be a time when you actually, some karma, good karma is coming your way, and you may be aware of what it is that you've achieved on a practical level. You might actually be rewarded with this going forward. But there is a sense of, if you haven't been doing the work, and this may be with a health or fitness goal as well. If you've been avoidant there with Neptune, maybe you've been drinking too much. Maybe you have been having a troubling relationship with food. This is a time to really figure that out in the best way that you can, with Neptune and Saturn both retrograde in this sector. So it's a time to really check in with yourself. How's the work going? How are your commitments going? And where you've been avoidant or evasive or hard to reach with Neptune. But also, as I say, you might recommit to a goal, or you might finally see some results for the work that you've been doing as well. Cancer. There's also a Cancer. Libra. Sorry, I keep looking at my notes, and whenever I read a sign, it comes straight to my mind. Libra. So other things that are happening for you, Libra, is that we do have a bit of focus on your social sector as well, particularly with Venus entering your sector of socializing, networking on the 11th. You're more favored with friends. You're more favored socially. There might be more social events for you to attend. You may find when you're at networking events, or you are networking, or your profile on social media might generate a lot of interest, a lot of clicks. For some of you, that can be online dating with Venus in the 11th. It can be meeting someone on a social media network like Instagram or Facebook or something like that. With Venus going through the 11th, it can be a really nice time socially for you. The tricky part about this is that with Mercury entering Leo, with Venus entering Leo, and then with the Sun entering Leo this month, it can bring about a few days where there are power struggles, because these transits are going to oppose Pluto in Aquarius. So if we look at the 2nd, Mercury entering your 11th house, opposing Pluto in your 5th, there can be a bit of a power struggle, maybe with a friend, maybe with a child, or you could notice that perhaps if you have a child, they're maybe going through something like a conflict with friends or a group or something like that. It can also be that when it comes to maybe a group project or a collaboration, there is some sort of tug of war. You're not on the same page. You're not communicating well. It feels like your communication is sort of staggered. There's a bit of perhaps manipulative energy or power plays to consider. And when Venus enters that sector on the 11th and opposes Pluto on the 12th, that's also a tricky day for friendships and social connections, because it can feel a little bit like you can wonder if you're being manipulated, you can wonder if someone's jealous, you can wonder if someone's being covert. It's kind of intense with Venus and Pluto opposing on the 12th, and the intensity is furthered on the 23rd when the Sun in your 11th house opposes Pluto. So it can be as well that perhaps if you have children and you want to socialize, there can be things going on with your children that are it's maybe harder to navigate having a social life, or your, what's going on with you in a team or a group and what's happening with a child at home, for example. That can be something that's playing out in a bit of a tug of war and you feel pulled in two different directions with this energy. One thing that's happening that is a little bit explosive is that on the 15th, Mars in Taurus is going to conjunct Uranus in Taurus, and that's happening in your 8th house. There can be a fight about money, joint resources, inheritance, loans, debts. There can be a bit of an explosive argument. There can be an impulsive move that really annoys someone, or there could be unexpected developments when it comes to joint financial relationships. This might also be a day when you feel a bit triggered from a trauma perspective. That could be happening in your life as well. Whenever Uranus is in play, it's actually, ironically, a good time to sort of slow down and detach and view things from a detached perspective, because Uranus does rule Aquarius. So if there's a conflict, if there's an aggression, try and take some space from it. Uranus really appreciates space. Mars does move into Gemini on the 20th, and this might put your focus, Libra, onto traveling or onto booking a trip. You might feel really inspired to travel, to get out there. If you're in higher education, you might feel a lot of energy to study, to pass your exams. You feel a surge of energy here. This can also mean that the conflict is more likely at university, at college, and higher education with teachers. It can also mean that if you're traveling, you can get into conflict with people that are there, or even people who come from different locations to yourself, with Mars being there, because Mars can act as an aggressor as much as it gives energy. Sometimes that energy is in excess, and there can be a war of words. There can be some verbal spars and verbal fights in the area that it goes through. But if you are in university or college, it can give you the energy to study, especially because Gemini is a very book-oriented sign, reading, making notes, writing, that kind of thing. I could see a lot of you burning the midnight oil, particularly with Jupiter being in Gemini, to study, because your mind just wants more information. There's a full moon in your home and family sector on the 21st, and this is at the anaretic degree, the crisis degree. And this may mean that when it comes to home, when it comes to family, there's some sort of peak experience, a peak emotional experience, Libra, where maybe you are feeling quite emotional, feeling like you want to be at home, feeling kind of sentimental, thinking about the past, and maybe for some of you as well, wanting to wrap up a particular chapter emotionally and wanting to enact change. Now, in June, there was a full moon in this sector as well. So think back to around the 21st, 22nd of June, what was going on in your home, your family sector, and note that there may be more to follow with that storyline if there was one. It's in a positive sextile to Neptune in your 6th house, so it feels like you, with a home and family situation, you could maybe be of service, you can be helpful, you can be of assistance if there is something happening at home. You may be moving, you might be buying a home, selling a home, getting an offer on a home, deciding that you want to move, and there could be an emotional experience coming up with a family member as well. Obviously this will affect everyone differently, but it really centers around the theme of home and family matters, Libra. As I said before, things do get quite social with Venus being in your 11th house. The Sun enters there on the 22nd, and you may find that you have more of a social battery. You might feel that you're ready to go out and about more, meet more people, hang out with friends, catch up with friends. And with Mercury being in that sector until the 25th, Mercury actually enters shadow in that sector too. You could be having some conversations and misunderstandings with friends coming up. You could have some conversations that seem okay at the time, and then later you have to say what you meant by that to a friend. Things that are discussed with friends in groups could need to be revisited later, but this can also be a nice time to catch up with friends you've not seen in a long time as well. Libra, when Mercury enters your 12th house on the 25th, you might be thinking about the past a little bit and going over details in your head. There may be some secrets that come out in conversations that need to be discussed, and they may be part of a wider storyline, maybe with friends, as there is going to be a retrograde in August as well. So that is what I have for you, Libra. I hope you have a great month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Scorpio, welcome to July. This is your horoscope for the month ahead. So Scorpio, I want to start with your 5th house. The 5th house is the sector of pleasure, romance, artistic and creative expression. It's also the house of children, and it's basically the house of fun. And Neptune is going retrograde in the sector on the 2nd. Saturn is already retrograde in this sector and will be retrograde for the whole of July up until November. So up until your season. So there's a bit of review. Retrogrades bring review periods when it comes to love, romance, what you do for fun, what brings you joy, what makes you feel creative. I mean, also your relationship to your children, or even just children in your family. But this is really giving you a sense of reflection in these areas. And with Neptune, this can bring a bit of a reality check. So your love life might be getting a little bit of a reality check if you've been yourself avoidant or evasive in your romantic life, or if you've been dealing with people who are that way inclined. You might be having a bit of a reality check. Is this person what I think they are, or have I created this vision or version of them in my head? It's that kind of energy. It reminds me of that Ariana Grande song, In My Head. So you might have a bit of a reality check if you're dating someone or you're romantically interested in or involved with somebody. But for some of you, this is going to be, a reality check maybe with a child. Maybe you've missed something with a child. Maybe they've been hiding something from you, or lying to you or something like that. That could bring a reality check there as well. And it might also be your relationship to your art and creativity. You might listen back to, say you're a songwriter, you might listen back to a song and think, oh, what was I thinking? Those kind of reality checks. And where you've not been experiencing growth, or where you've not been seeing the fruits of your labor, if you have been committed to your art, to your creativity, or to experiencing better and learning tough lessons when it comes to love, when it comes to your relationship to your kids, you are going to see growth there eventually, with Saturn being retrograde in that sector. If you've been doing the work wherever Saturn is, if you've been dedicated, if you've been thorough, you do see results. It might not be 100% clear until November, but you will see results. It's just where you've been avoidant. A lot of people are finding with Neptune and Saturn in the mix that there can be some very cold, sobering reality checks when it comes to these areas, your art, your love life, your children, or just having fun in general. For some of you, it could be getting serious about perhaps gambling or the lottery or something like that, if you're interested in those type of things, because they can get out of hand. So other things that are happening for you this month, Scorpio, we do have a bit of activity happening in your 9th house. So some of you could be traveling this month. The sun is there until the 22nd, and we do have a new moon in Cancer on the 5th of July in that sector. So you may have an opportunity to travel, to go somewhere fun, to go to, and I say fun because Venus, the ruler of your 5th house, is conjunct this new moon. So you may travel. You could meet someone romantically with Venus in the picture. You might be beginning a new course of study. You might be planning a trip abroad. You might be planning to perhaps embark in college or university overseas, with this being the 9th house. You might want to study something, but I do think for a lot of you it could be travel related. And with the connection to Venus, I think this could be a lot of fun for you. I think it could be a source of joy, whatever you're beginning around the 5th of July, Scorpio. Mercury, Venus, and the Sun all touch into Leo, your 10th house, this month, and they will get into oppositions with Pluto in your 4th. And these are not the easiest days of July, and I'll explain why. So Mercury entering your 10th house on the 2nd and opposing Pluto in Aquarius on the 3rd. You may find that there is a power struggle with a boss, with your career. There might also be tricky energy when it comes to balancing your career life and your home life. You could feel tugged in two different directions. You could feel as though people are being a little bit more controlling in these areas, a little bit more manipulative. You may find that at work things are being said that maybe remind you of a dynamic with a parent or a family member, and it can feel a little bit shadowy to you. Venus enters Leo on the 11th and opposes Pluto on the 12th. And you may notice that a key relationship at work or professionally is under some kind of strain, or you may find that perhaps your family or whoever you live with is not pleased with whatever's going on for you professionally, not happy for you. You might find a little bit with Venus being there that perhaps some people are a bit jealous of your success. For some of you, Venus entering Leo on the 11th does, aside from, you know, this opposition to Pluto, have a lot of benefits professionally. If you're putting yourself out there professionally or you're in the spotlight of the public eye, it tends to bring a lot of positive energy your way. You know, you're more well received, you're more liked publicly, but it can feel a little bit like maybe, you say you've moved house or you're moving house, there can be a push and pull between the work that you have to do and the change that you're making at home or with your family. But these are two areas that are quite hard to balance this month, on those days at least. Particularly on the 22nd, if you have a boss or you are a boss, there could be a little bit of a clash coming. Again, it's centering around control issues, possessiveness, manipulation, secrets, and those type of things can play out when it comes to your public life or your work life. You might also find that if you're in the public eye and you have some secrets, you could find, particularly on the 22nd, 23rd, that maybe something does come out. It doesn't have to be the case for all of you, but there can be a lot of tension when it comes to your career at times this month, as much as there can also be wins with Venus being there in your 10th house, because you can get on better with people relationship wise when Venus is in your 10th house. So there is a bit of contrast going on there. There could be a conflict in a relationship on the 15th. When Uranus is in the picture, especially if it's an explosive aspect, like Mars conjunct Uranus in this case, it can be a fight with a partner, a spouse, a key relationship in your life. There can be tension. With Uranus in the mix, I do suggest trying to be a bit more detached from the situation, put space between you and an argument with somebody, because this is a tricky one for negotiations. It feels irritated, it feels irritable, it feels shocking, it feels sudden. So a fight could come out of nowhere, and the best way to de-escalate it is to put a bit of space between you and the other person on the 19th. Mars enters your 8th house on the 20th, so where Mars goes, energy flows. So you may find that you have more energy for practicing the occult if you're into it, as a lot of Scorpio placements tend to be. There can be a lot of energy put towards maybe sourcing a mortgage, helping your partner make more money with Mars being there. It can be where you're more inclined to tackle any emotional baggage that you might be carrying with Mars. It can also be where there's fights about inheritance, joint resources, mortgages, loans, that type of thing with Mars being there. Of course, with Jupiter being there, and they connect in August, but with Jupiter being there as well, you can really benefit from these areas. So maybe something's changing in terms of your financial setup with somebody else, and you're feeling the energy to work on things and push for something. But as I say, with Mars, especially in Gemini, there can be verbal fights. There can be, you can also find a little bit with this being the sector of baggage and traumas, that you could find yourself a little bit triggered at times by something that somebody says. So be mindful of that with Mars being there. Mars does rule your first house traditionally, so it may be where you're taking something personally that was not necessarily intended to be that way. We have a full moon in Capricorn on the 21st. It's at the anaretic degree, and it's very close to Pluto, and this is occupying your 3rd house, so there may be an important conversation coming up around this time. I will say, Scorpio, if you noticed around the 21st of June, the full moon in Capricorn, at that time there can be the next chapter of a storyline when it comes to maybe a sibling, extended family, a car, short-term travel plans, or writing, or something that you've been learning, or your neighborhood. The storyline could be continuing there. Of course, with Saturn in retrograde now, you might be reviewing this area a little bit, but there can be a need to make change or let go of something with the full moon at 29 degrees and conjunct Pluto. You might want to let go of perhaps, the sextile to Neptune is very compassionate. You might want to forgive a neighbor, a sibling, someone in your extended family. You might want to forgive a comment or something that was said with this being the third house. Or it could also be that you're wanting to wrap something up on a writing project or a creative project of yours as well, Scorpio. But there can be news. Some of you might be giving up a car, changing your car, changing the way that you travel, or changing the neighborhood that you live in, Scorpio. That can be another thing that happens. As I said, the sun enters your professional sector on the 22nd. Venus is there. Mercury is there until the 25th, though there will be a retrograde period in August. So there's a lot of spotlight on your career, your public image, your professional life, your reputation, what you're known for, and your professional goals, Scorpio. So there's a lot of focus coming up there. And you might also find yourself intuitively inclined to pick up old projects. Try to pay extra attention to the details this month with work, because mistakes may come up again in August if they've been made, or a project you've been working on may not get off the ground as quickly as you like. You might have to go over it, fine-tune it, because Mercury will go retrograde in Virgo and then retrograde back into Leo, your professional sector, in August. Now, Mercury entering Virgo on the 25th means that, as it's in shadow, pay attention to conversations with friends, with groups of people, details there, because you may be reviewing these in August as well when Mercury goes retrograde in this sector. Particularly with, I want to say, female friends, because there will be a conjunction to Venus in this sector. So old conversations may come up. You might have to go over the details with a plan, a social plan, an arrangement, something like that, Scorpio. You might have to go over the details. So pay attention to the details for sure, Scorpio, this month. So as I summarize this, there can be some push and pull power struggles in your career, in your professional life with you or someone else. There can be an opportunity to travel, a new beginning. In terms of traveling or higher education, you might be ready to finally let something go or wrap up a chapter, maybe with a certain relationship in your life, most likely a sibling, a neighbor, or it could even be to do with a vehicle or traveling arrangements. And pay attention to your conversations and the details in the workplace, because they may need to be reviewed again in August. That is what I have for you, Scorpio, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Sagittarius, welcome to July. So Sagittarius, I want to start off with your home life, your home and living situation, or your relationship to your family. Because Neptune is going retrograde at 29 degrees of Pisces in your home and family sector on the 2nd. So this month we'll have Neptune and Saturn both retrograde in this sector. So with all of the signs, there's a bit of a sobering reality check in the sector and the need to get real about something, particularly because Neptune's at 29 degrees and this is known as the crisis degree. And before that panics you, it just simply means that something may need to be addressed, or at least you feel it needs to be addressed rather urgently. So you may need a reality check in terms of your living home property situation. So whether that is that you're looking for a new home, there's something to be fixed in the home urgently. With Neptune, maybe that's a leak, maybe that's to do with water, pipes, things like that. Something may need to change, something might need to be addressed and take a lot of your attention. You know, you need to redo it, review it, rethink it, reflect on it, those type of things. But there can be a reality check. If you're moving, it might be that you need to, consider your budget a little better. You might need to think about whether this is actually a good idea. If you're maybe thinking, too big, maybe. But basically, whatever the case is, you're getting a little bit of a reality check when it comes to your living situation. This can also be to do with family relationships. Maybe you need to set some boundaries in place where you've been, maybe avoiding people instead of setting boundaries. So that can be a theme that comes up because Saturn and Neptune both retrograde. Neptune is pretty boundaryless and Saturn is very boundary oriented. Neptune prefers to be avoidant in those type of situations. So you might need to consider your relationships to your relationship to your family members or certain family members. You might need to rethink these relationships for whatever reason. It'll be different for all of you. We do have a lot going on in your Cancer house, which is the 8th house. So this kind of brings into the mix a lot of energy when it comes to maybe loans, mortgages, joint assets, joint resources, your partner's money, with the Cancerian transits, because the 8th house is associated with the finances that we are linked to other people with. So your partner's money or a mortgage. There can be a new beginning there in the 5th with the new moon in Cancer. Maybe your partner's salary is changing. Maybe you're getting a loan. Maybe you're paying off debt. Maybe you're getting a mortgage. With so much happening, Saturn being in the 4th, I could see a lot of you getting a mortgage, looking for planning permission, or wanting to buy a home for the first time, or invest in your home, or remortgage your home. Something like that with the new moon on the 5th. Or this can also be, changes to your taxes, wanting to pay off your taxes, wanting to pay off debt, or something like that with the new moon in the 5th. It's in a positive, it's very close to Venus. Venus is good for finances, so you might find it easier to get that loan or get that mortgage, or your partner's finances to increase, Sagittarius, especially as you are benefiting through partners, with Jupiter being in your sector of relationships. The sun will be in the 8th house until the 22nd, so you may be very focused on joint financial relationships. And if it's not that, for some people, the 8th house can manifest a lot as intimate, close, vulnerable connections. So you might be more focused on an intimate connection. You might also be more focused with the 8th house ruling trauma and emotional baggage. You might be more focused on working through some stuff as well. It can manifest very psychologically with 8th house transits if it's not to do with other people's money. This can be where you're maybe more focused on learning about psychology, or you're interested in finding a good therapist. If you're looking for a good therapist, I think a lot of you would find one around the 5th with that new moon. But we do have a lot of adventure this month as well. So the sun enters your 9th house on the 22nd. Venus has already entered there on the 11th. So you may be finding that this is a time where you travel, you want to plan your next adventure, you want to plan your next holiday, vacation with, you're a very travel oriented sign, Sagittarius, so you might be finding that you're wanting to travel abroad or book a trip. You may also be finding that you're wanting to study something new. If you are traveling, when Venus is in the 9th, it's very favourable. You tend to get on better with people while you're there, get on better with people from different countries. This can also be really positive for your relationships if you're in a course of study, if you're in university. But, and there is a but, every planet that enters the sign of Leo is going to get into an opposition with Pluto in Aquarius. Now, Pluto in Aquarius, Pluto's in your 3rd house. So this may be, Sagittarius, changing profoundly your relationship to your siblings, to your neighbours, and this may also be changing the way that you communicate, and it may also be a time where you're changing your relationship to your neighbourhood, your community. And you may find with, these planets entering your 9th house, there could be communication issues with people, especially people from different countries, or perhaps your professors or your teachers. There can be some power struggles going on there. There can be a bit of shadowy activity. So if you have a teacher, they might be a bit dramatic about something, Sagittarius. If you have a mentor, they could be a kind of, perhaps there's control issues, who's sort of leading the show, power plays with teachers, with mentors, with people from different countries, maybe even language miscommunication, particularly on the 2nd, 3rd with the Mercury-Pluto opposition. Watch for miscommunication with language. With all this opposing Plutonian energy, I would say trust your intuition. Try to make sure you're not manipulated by other people. Try to remain calm. And try to also consider maybe changing the way that you communicate. And I don't mean that in a sense of you should change yourself to fit other people, but maybe say, for example, you've always reacted a certain way before and it's not really working for you. You might change the way that you react to something that is said to you. And this can actually take back your power. So the way that you communicate this month can be very powerful with other people who are maybe trying to control you through their words. Choosing your own thoughts, choosing the way that you react is how you find your power this month, Sagittarius. Mars is going to connect with Uranus in your 6th house on the 15th. If ever there were a day you could do yourself a mischief in the gym or working out, this is the day, so be careful. Say you have not worked out in a long time and all of a sudden you feel this jolt of energy and you want to work out, you forget to warm up and then you hurt yourself, or you are too, you're careless with something that you're doing. Be careful with that. That's not a day to really push yourself too hard, because you might actually, it's a good day to work out, don't get me wrong, because you can really channel that excess energy into your health and fitness. But if you act too quickly, suddenly out of nowhere, you can really hurt yourself. You can have a muscle spasm or a sprain or something like that. So be mindful of that on the 15th. Make sure that you're warming up if you're going to do any sort of physical activity. And also be careful of getting into fights in the workplace, because they can escalate in unexpected ways on the 15th. There's a focus on your money on the 21st with a full moon in Capricorn. And this is interesting because we had a full moon already at the end of June in this sector. So you may be wrapping up a chapter when it comes to something financial, maybe a particular way of making money, maybe your salary is changing. You could be getting a pay rise, you could be taking a pay cut, but it feels like there's change. There's a conjunction to Pluto in the mix, and Pluto's going to cover this old ground. From a fundamental level, Sagittarius, honestly, you're probably changing the way that you have a relationship with money psychologically. That's probably changing for whatever reason, whatever the circumstance. Pluto tends to bring about profound psychological change. So maybe some of you are perhaps, letting go of a way of spending money to make yourself feel better, or you're changing the way that you make money to be more authentic with you. Whatever the case is, Sagittarius, there's a spotlight on your money on the 21st, and it feels like you're wrapping up a particular chapter. And this may be with Saturn retrograde in Pisces now, that it's to do with the home or property, or prioritizing your money to go there effectively. For a lot of you, I do think this month you could be figuring out what you want to do with property. Mercury enters Virgo on the 25th, and this is your 10th house. Now, this is a great time to pay attention at work to the details, or with your career, or how you communicate publicly, because this may be coming up for review again in August, because Mercury will go retrograde in Virgo and retrograde back into Leo. So this month is quite favourable for travel. There could be some trickiness with travel plans for August. So if you are planning to travel in August, just bear in mind that you might want to take out insurance in case flights get cancelled or something like that. You may want to double check the details of what you're booking as well. And particularly from a professional standpoint, you might want to choose your words a little bit more carefully. Proofread emails those extra times, as tedious as it can be, because a lot of the work that comes up from the 25th in particular is going to be reviewed again. Although I know it's in August and this is July, but we will actually find that Mercury retrograde connects with Venus in Virgo, so there can be a positive review of something. Something maybe gets reviewed from the past and it goes better than expected. But nevertheless, do focus on the details when it comes to career, because it is going to come up again in August. And also your travel details are very important to consider, Sagittarius, as well. Mars enters Gemini, your 7th house of relationships, in the 20th. Now Jupiter is there, which means that it's easier to attract a partner. If you want a partnership, attract a new relationship. With Jupiter being in the mix, that can be that they come from a different country. It can be that they're someone who's very highly educated. It can also be that with Jupiter being your ruler, you have to pursue these relationships. But with Mars going into this sector, you may find that you have more drive to pursue partnership. You may also find that your partner themselves, if you have one, could be more irritable or more inclined to pick fights after the 20th with Mars being there, or there could be some arguments just come out of nowhere in your relationship with Mars being there. But it can also be very passionate for relationships as well. You can meet people who you find really attractive, or you can find that you're pursuing relationships more in July, Sagittarius. And with Mars meeting Jupiter, you might find you have a lot of energy and passion for relationships, particularly in August when they do meet, they do conjunct. So that is what I have for you, Sagittarius. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Capricorn, welcome to July 2024. This is your horoscope. So Capricorn, there is quite a lot of emphasis on relationships this month, and that is basically relating to others in general, rather than just, your significant other or your best friend or your business partner. It tends to put focus on these relationships, but it is to do with your relationship life in general. So there could be significant focus on a key relationship in your life this month. And it may also be that this is a sector of life that you're looking to work on and put more energy and attention towards, is your relationship sector. And if you're looking for a new relationship this month, if you're looking for a new romantic relationship in particular, the 5th of July, around that time, you may notice someone new come into the picture, because there is a new moon in your relationship sector on the 5th. And this can mean that there's a new romantic relationship. It can also be, as Venus rules your 10th house, a new business partnership or new business relationship. And it can also mean, of course, a best friend if you're looking for that as well. But there just seemed to be a new relationship entering the picture in some form for a lot of Capricorns. And I think this is a really positive one with the connection to Venus, one that brings you joy, one that feels pleasant. Venus also rules your 5th house. So for a lot of you, it could be romantic with this new moon in Cancer. Or if you're looking for love, it might be a really good time to get to grips with what it is that you do want in a partner, what it is that you do want in a relationship, and what would make you feel the most safe and secure. Because you have a Cancerian 7th house, so you're looking for someone that feels like home, effectively, Capricorn. Venus is going to be in that sector until the 11th, which makes finding a new relationship or enjoying your current relationship that bit more likely as well. I just want to touch on your 3rd house. So your ruler Saturn is now retrograde in the 3rd house, and on the 2nd of July, Neptune goes retrograde in that sector too. So this could be that you're reconsidering and reviewing a relationship to a sibling, to a neighbour, or to your community in general, maybe your role within a local community, maybe your relationship to cousins, aunts, uncles, extended family. And you may also be just reconsidering what you do on a day-to-day basis, or you could be perhaps dealing with some car issues as well that you need to look at. If you've been avoiding something with your vehicle, maybe one of those little lights is coming on the dashboard and you've just been ignoring it. Now's the time to look at it with Neptune retrograde and Saturn retrograde as well. I'm sorry my voice is going. I actually do have the dreaded Rona at the moment, and my voice is kind of going. So it sounds a bit low and it's a wee bit strained. So sorry about that. Although, it's kind of poignant for you, because having these planets retrograde in your 3rd house is making you reconsider, now that I mention it, how you speak and how you communicate and how you articulate yourself, or particularly with Saturn retrograde, how you speak up for yourself as well. These are things that you're reconsidering. And Neptune retrograde there can bring a bit of a reality check. So where you've been avoidant when it comes to, your relationship to a sibling, a neighbour, your community, you've been avoiding saying something, or you just assumed that things will be fine if you don't say anything. You might have to get a bit of a rude awakening there with Neptune retrograde. There's a sense of urgency too with the 29th degree being in play. So maybe you feel like you've been sitting on saying something for a while, or maybe you've not been totally truthful about something, and now is the time to say, okay, I need to speak my truth. I need to speak what I want to say. And also, listen honestly to somebody else and what they're saying as well. Not embellishing what they're saying, basically. So that sector is under review for a while, and it's testing your commitments, and it's testing your lens of logic and reality to be more logical and to be more realistic in this area, and to be more practical and set boundaries and look at things for how they really are, particularly in July when Neptune does go retrograde. Mercury enters your 8th house on the 2nd, and it does oppose Pluto in your 2nd house, so there could be a challenging communication about money, about finances, joint resources in a marriage, joint resources in terms of a loan or a mortgage. There could be a bit of a power struggle with you and somebody else, or you could just feel a little bit powerless or looking for more control when it comes to a financial situation. Similarly, on the 12th, when Venus has entered Leo on the 11th, highlighting your 8th house, there could be, with the opposition to Pluto on the 12th, When it comes to money, again, another power struggle this time in terms of, you know, maybe how you spend your money or what you like to spend money on versus maybe what your partner likes to spend money on, or vice versa. It could be a bit of a challenge in a romantic relationship if you've joint finances, because there could be a bit of a tug of war going on when it comes to money. And then on the 23rd, when the sun has entered your 8th house and it opposes Pluto in your 2nd, again, there can be a power struggle or ego clash when it comes to financial matters. And considerations of power and control come up for review. With the oppositions, there usually is a common ground that you can find, but it takes a bit of swinging in either direction, you know, especially if you're in a joint financial relationship, what they need versus what you need. But there's this underlying need to have the upper hand, basically, and have the control in a financial situation. But it can also be to do with, you know, being at odds with someone about values. That can be something that comes up as well. And the changes that you're making with Pluto in your 2nd house from a financial nature, you are looking to transform your finances. This might not necessarily be in alignment with what somebody else has in mind or what somebody else is doing. Be that somebody else your spouse, be that somebody else a bank or something like that. But Venus entering Leo in the 11th, although there is that opposition, Venus in Leo does bring a bit of abundance possibly to your partner's finances, and it can make it that bit easier to get a loan or a mortgage or a grant or something like that. It can also mean that you're more dedicated, you know, it's a goal of yours because Venus rules the 10th house, to pay off some debt or attract experiences to you that help you get your finances in order. It's another way that this can play out as well, Capricorn. And it's also a really nice aspect for romantic connections and intimate relationships as well, because Venus going through the 8th can be quite spicy. Mars and Uranus connect in the 15th in your 5th house. There could be an explosive outburst from a child in your life if you have children. There could also be an unexpected or a sudden argument with a romantic interest, or you could actually have a burst of creative inspiration as well and a breakthrough when it comes to your creative project with that conjunction on the 15th. But try to not be too reactive, because the situation may already be quite reactive and explosive with Mars conjunct Uranus, and you don't want to throw more kerosene on the fire, so to speak. I'm so sorry about my throat, I really am. Mars enters Gemini on the 20th, and Mars going through Gemini for you, Capricorn, is really putting a lot of focus on your health and your well-being, and you may find that you're hitting the gym more, you're paying more attention, putting more energy into your health, you're wanting to get anything health related sorted if you can. You may also find that you deal with some hotheads in the gym, or you find that maybe there are some arguments or bitchiness when it comes to co-workers or employees. Could be some workplace drama that gets a bit heated. And you may also find that perhaps you're getting a bit frustrated at times with putting in a lot of effort to something and not getting instant results. That can be very Martian, but it can bring a bit of bitchiness sometimes as well, you know, verbal outbursts. So if you're in the gym and you notice someone being a little bit snarky, that's why. Or if you notice your co-workers fighting over who said what, that could be why as well, Capricorn. There's a full moon in your sign, and it's the 2nd of 2 full moons in your sign. The first one being in June 21st, and this one being July 21st. So this is at the final degree of your sign, a degree that you're quite familiar with because Pluto has been going over that degree, and we'll go over that degree again in September, October and November. So pay attention to what's coming up with this full moon, because it may have some sort of reminiscent energy with the end of June, but it can also give you a little bit of insight into what's being wrapped up from September to November as well. But I think with you, it's very personal. It could be to do with something you're trying to change about yourself, something you're trying to let go of, or something you're trying to transform. There's a connection to Pluto here, so maybe you're finally ready to change some sort of habit or viewpoint or approach to life, or you're wanting to change something about your physical appearance as well. And it feels very now or never with the 29th degree. It can be a sense of urgency. That urgency can be very emotional. rather than practically necessary. But you may feel like now is the time to make a personal change, or now is the time to transform your approach to life as well, Capricorn. That can be a way that this is playing out. And maybe that's because for some of you, there's a new relationship entering your life and you're having to, or maybe they're changing your perspectives and you're having to navigate those changes. Mercury enters Virgo on the 25th, which for you is your 9th house. You may have some travel plans coming up. If you do, double check the details, because Mercury is going to go retrograde in Virgo in August. It's going to retrograde back into Leo, your 8th house. So there is a sense of reviewing the details when it comes to travel arrangements, when it comes to maybe passports, visas, documentation. Double check everything, read over everything, and also make sure that if you're studying for university or exams, you're getting the dates right. You know, dates could be moved around when it comes to exams or submission deadlines or something like that. But Mercury will also retrograde into your 8th house again, Leo. So for you, Capricorn, that means that if there are some financial discussions this month, maybe with a partner or with a bank or anything like that, again, the details may have to be brought up again. So maybe knowing that will give you a little bit of comfort if there's a bit of back and forth in anything that gets discussed this month. Do pay attention, as I say, with this being in the sign of Virgo, to the details. Even though it's going to retrograde back into Leo and cover a bit more ground there, do pay attention to the details of this retrograde, and do pay attention to, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, that kind of thing with any documentation. So that is what I have for you, Capricorn. I hope you have a great month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Aquarius, welcome to July. I hope you're doing really well. This is your July horoscope. So Aquarius, this is going to be quite an interesting month for you, because the inner planets, so Mercury, Venus, and the Sun, are all going to be moving into your partnership sector, your relationship sector. So this area is going to be highlighted, but it is all going to oppose Pluto in your first house of self. So there's going to be some very intense energy when it comes to your relationships to others. So I'm going to start with this. Mercury enters your relationship sector on the 2nd. Mercury going through your relationship sector until the 25th is often a time where your relationship sector is more active. So say you're online dating, you're maybe getting a lot more messages, or maybe you're talking to your partner more about certain things, or you're noticing that conversation is just kind of flowing more in relationships, or you feel more inclined to talk to people. Sometimes Aquarius isn't always so inclined that way, but it can be that you are more, there's more discussions, there's more activity in your relationship sector. And it doesn't have to be romantic, it can be a best friend, it can be a business partner. But also on the 11th, Venus enters that sector, and Venus going through your partnership sector from the 11th on until August is going to bless that sector, because if you're looking for a relationship, this is a really positive time. If you are in a relationship, again, this is a time when things just flow a bit better with a partner or relationships in general. It's easier to be well received by others. And then the Sun enters that sector on the 22nd, putting a lot of energy and focus again into relationships of many kinds, not just romantically, although I think for a lot of you there's a bit of a romantic focus this month. So while that all sounds good, these planets all oppose Pluto quite quickly into their transit. So Pluto's in your first house, and that means for you that you are changing quite profoundly. You're really transforming from the inside out, and from very deep places too. And as you change, and you, for a lot of you, are trying to take back your power, take back your sense of personal autonomy, if you're already in a relationship, the changes that you make personally can of course affect your partnership and your relationship, because if you change and the other person isn't changing, it can create different dynamics for better or for worse. But you're going through this profound change, and you may find on the 3rd, on the 12th, and on the 23rd that you're maybe running into a bit of a power struggle with a person in your life. Can be business, can be romantic, can be best friend. It can be an open enemy if you have any. It just reminds me of Bart Simpson saying, I'm only 8 and I'm only 10 and I have 2 mortal enemies. It could be a case where if you have an enemy, there's some serious opposing energy. So if you have a rival this month, there's some serious opposing energies too, I will say, Aquarius. So hopefully you don't have those, but if you do, you've been warned. There's some oppositional energy, and with Pluto being in your sign, there is a pull for you to take back your power. There is also a need to be, especially with Venus in the 7th house, be considerate of other people's needs as well. That'll be the key to achieving a mutual understanding if you're looking for that in a relationship. But it can also just be where you witness the changes that you're making and how they affect somebody else, or how it changes a relationship that you're in, or it changes what you're looking for in a relationship, Aquarius. So there's there's potential for some power struggles in your relationships this month. But there is also, as I say, with Venus being in your 7th house, the potential for positive events and changes when it comes to your romantic partnerships in particular, because Jupiter's in your 5th house, which can bring a lot of romantic opportunity. Mars enters your 5th house in the 20th. So when we have Venus in your 7th house and Mars in your 5th, it's easier to attract love, to find love, to take action to find love, and to enjoy more romantic times in your relationship. I will say Mars being in the 5th house can bring a bit of dispute in romance or dating. There can be, on one hand, a lot of passion and a lot of exciting energy with romantic prospects, but there can also be, with Gemini, these verbal disputes or cutting comments here and there, or these verbal debates. But it doesn't have to evolve into a full-blown conflict. A lot of the time with Mars and Gemini, it can be quite flirty, but yes, it also has the opportunity to be a little bitchy at times, or the potential to be a little bitchy at times. But it can also bring a lot of passion to that sector. And if you're a creative person as well, if you're an artist, with having Mars and Jupiter both in your creative sector, it can mean that you're more inclined to take action on creative ideas. You've all these ideas, you've all these sparks of inspiration. It can be quite wonderful for creatives. But it also can mean that if you have children, because the 5th house is children, there can be a bit of, they could be kind of irritable or angry at times with Mars being there. They might say things that are quite hurtful at times. And with Jupiter being there, there's also the opportunity for a lot of you to experience pregnancy, or to be pregnant, to be giving birth at this time. And particularly if that is you, although for all of you, there is a focus this month on health as well. We have a new moon in your 6th house, and the sun is in your 6th house until the 22nd. So this can be a time when you're really focused on getting good, healthy routines for yourself and really focusing on your health and well-being. Especially around the 5th, you might be starting a new exercise routine. There might be a new change to your diet or how you take care of your health. This can be a time when you're wanting to make positive changes. And I think the key to any positive changes health-wise, Aquarius, this month, is to find some beauty in it. So say, because this new moon is conjunct Venus. Say you want to join a gym, but you don't feel inspired. This might be a good time to buy a pair of trainers you really like, or gym attire you really like. Something that makes you feel like there's an aesthetically pleasing quality to this. It can also be that if you're joining a new workplace, because the 6th house is also work, where you work, it's your co-workers, it's your employees, you might find that putting a beautiful plant on your desk is something that will help, or sprucing up your home office, with this being the sign of Cancer. It can also mean for some of you that whatever you do for work, with Venus being conjunct this new moon, you might find love there, or you might find romance with this new job, or there can just be a change in your working environment, who's in it, where you're doing it, and that kind of thing as well, Aquarius. There can be a new service you're adding to your work as well. Is one way that can play out. Now we do have a full moon on the 21st in the sign of Capricorn. It's at the anaretic degree, so there is a sense of change. This is conjunct Pluto, and Pluto is in your sign. You're changing profoundly, as I mentioned before, and around the time of this full moon, you seem to be letting go of something. The 12th house is where we let go. And it doesn't have to be anything literal, that you can hold in your hand, or a change that you can see. Obviously, it can be something very behind the scenes. It can be an emotional grudge. It can be pain from the past that you're processing emotionally. It can be letting go of a particular chapter in your life, a lonely chapter maybe, or a solo chapter of some kind you could be letting go of. But it does feel like you have to let something go. It can also be a time for some of you, the secret comes out. And this might change things for you, or it might change the way that you approach life. But it can also be for some of you that you're just ready to let go of a particular chapter, or you're also feeling more introspective and you want to heal and you want to retreat, and your dreams are very profound and vivid. The ruler of this full moon is Saturn, and it's in your second house. So with Saturn now being retrograde in your second house, you're getting very serious about your commitments to your finances, your values, what matters to you. You're reviewing this area. And particularly this month when it comes to your spending, Aquarius, Neptune's going retrograde in the second at the crisis degree as well. So Neptune's going to be in a positive sextile to the full moon. I think a lot of you are ready to let go of some self-sabotaging behaviors when it comes to money, or when it comes to values, when it comes to what matters to you. I think a lot of you are ready to let go of some stuff that's getting in the way of you maybe feeling more prosperous, more abundance, or feeling like you're living life in alignment with your values and what's true to you as well, Aquarius. Neptune retrograde in Pisces, it can bring some reality checks when it comes to your money, when it comes to your finances, your income, your budgets, the things that you have. Maybe you're wanting to let go of some things and creating space. Maybe you're having to let go of some possessions, or you're decluttering your space. But it can also be where maybe you're having an epiphany when it comes to your values or your sense of self-confidence and belief in yourself as well, Aquarius. Mercury enters Virgo on the 25th, your 8th house. There could be some conversations coming up about joint financial resources. So that can be mortgages, loans, debts, your partner's money. And this could be, pay attention to the details if there are conversations coming up in this particular area, because you may be going over them again in August when Mercury goes retrograde. I do think as well for a lot of you, this could be very psychological. You could be going over some stuff from the past, maybe with a therapist, maybe with a counselor, maybe with a trusted friend, and you might be going over some stuff from the past and you could be having a bit of a breakthrough. Mercury loves being in Virgo, will go retrograde in the sign in August, so you might bring something up and you sort of notice it has relevance from a psychological perspective if you're doing that kind of work, and you may go over it again in August. This can also be very relationship oriented too, because Mercury will retrograde back into your relationship sector in August. So if there's any conversations coming up with a partner or prospective partner, whether that's romantic, whether that's business, whether that's a best friend, there can be deja vu coming up in August. Some things that are brought up in conversation may be coming up again next month, because they could be part of a wider storyline, basically, Aquarius. So you might have to sort out some things financially, maybe with a partner, or you might have to sort out some you might have to figure out some details when it comes to a financial arrangement with somebody else, whether that's a bank, a partner, a relationship. There can be a need to go over these things again. Do pay attention to the details best you can, because it's in the sign of Virgo. And when it does go back into your relationship sector, be prepared for some possible misunderstandings or miscommunication with a partner or prospective partner, Aquarius. That is what I have for you in July. I hope you have a great month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Pisces, welcome to July 2024. This is your horoscope for the month ahead. So Pisces, some of you are considering a rebranding, because for the whole of the month we have Saturn retrograde in your first house in Pisces until November, but we also have Neptune going retrograde in the 2nd of July at the final degree of your sign. So who you are is up for review. You're really reconsidering your approach to life, your personality, your personal goals, even your appearance and your aesthetic. But basically your approach to life, how you show up to the world and how you view yourself. You're really reconsidering these things, and I think a lot of you are inspired to continue to make changes. Saturn being in your sign can bring about new commitments, increased responsibility, increased commitment, taking yourself a bit more seriously, being more dedicated. Neptune, on the other hand, with the retrograde energy, is going to give you, well, it's quite similar to Saturn in the sense that it's going to give you a reality check. But Neptune's a very mystical planet. When it goes retrograde, you get a reality check and you see things a little bit more soberly. For some of you, it could actually be gradually getting sober. You could be deciding you don't want to drink anymore, with Neptune and Saturn both being in your sign. You could think there's parts of yourself you don't want to run away from anymore, you don't want to escape. You could be a little bit more self-conscious at times, you know, considering who you are, noticing things about yourself you haven't seen before, or addressing parts of yourself you want to address. But it can also be about reconnecting with Neptune retrograde to what makes you magical, because you are arguably the most mystical, magical sign of the zodiac. So you could be reconnecting to something spiritual about yourself as well, Pisces. But there is a sense of reconsideration of who you are and how you show up to the world. And this could be simply a very inward thing, but it can also be because of things changing externally for you, Pisces. Now, there's some really beautiful romantic energy this month for you. The sun is in your romantic sector until the 22nd, putting a spotlight on your romantic life, but also your creative life. If you're creative, we're all creative in some points, but if you're an artist in particular, this can really shine a spotlight on your artistic abilities, your creative abilities. You could put yourself out there for your creative works more. You could also put yourself out there more for dating if you're looking for romance. And if you have children, you may be spending more time with your children. Now, there's a new beginning in this area. So for some of you, 5th of July, around the time of that new moon, some of you could be getting pregnant, conceiving. Some of you could be giving birth, of course. Some of you could be creating a new idea. There could be a new creative project. For a lot of you, the conjunction to Venus, you could find new love this month. There could be a new romantic prospect on the horizon. With the connection to Venus, it could be someone that you find very attractive. Venus has a lot of joy in the 5th house. So you could find someone that really ticks all the boxes. Particularly as we do have harmonious aspects with Saturn, you know, the Cancerian transits trining Saturn in your 1st house, you could feel like you're attracting someone worth committing to romantically this month, Pisces. So if you're looking for new love, that's a great time to set your mind to it, or go on a date, or you might find somebody new coming into your life. If you're in a relationship, it could simply mean more romance in your current relationship, Pisces. A new romantic chapter, doing something with a partner, could be indicated at the time of this new moon. Venus is there until the 11th, so this is a great time to find romance, to find joy in music and creativity. You could find yourself going to gigs, you could find yourself going to performances, the theatre, things like that. And these may be places where you find romance, Pisces. Venus enters your 6th house in the 11th. Mercury enters your 6th house in the 2nd. The Sun enters your 6th house in the 22nd. Pay attention to these days and the day after. There can be some power struggles when it comes to work, your day-to-day work. So the people you work with, your co-workers or your employees, there can be a bit of power struggle, coming out of nowhere with some of these people, with Pluto being in your 12th. You could learn secrets about these people. There could be a bit of manipulation with these people, or it may also feel a little bit like there could be some unexpected health matters come up out of nowhere, things that you weren't aware of. So for example, Mercury opposing Pluto, Mercury being in your 6th house, Pluto being in your 12th, you could find yourself getting sick if you're traveling. That's just happened to me. I'm a Pisces rising, so you might find that maybe around the 3rd, if you're traveling about, you might get a bit of a sore throat, you might have a little bit of a virus or a cold. You may also find that a relationship and work around the 12th is a bit strained, or there's a power struggle, or there's some sort of underhand tactics coming from someone in your workplace, or an employee even. You may also find on the 23rd that somebody at work is on a power trip or having a bit of an ego explosion, and you're kind of thinking, whoa, where did that come from? Because Pluto's in the 12th, some of this is very behind the scenes. It could have been brewing for quite a while, but you might learn secrets about people you work with this month, Pisces. That could be something that comes up as well. Venus going into your 6th house, though, as much as that opposition can be a bit tricky, Venus going through your 6th house can mean that relationships with co-workers can improve. Your workplace could be a bit more social. There could be positive social activity going on around this time, getting on better with people that you work with for the most part. That opposition to Pluto could be something a little bit different, someone in a position of power maybe, but for the most part this can bring positive interactions with people you work with, maybe even connecting with someone romantically potentially through work. Pisces. Mars is going to connect with Uranus in the 15th in your 3rd house. Be careful of arguing with neighbours in your local community. Don't drive too fast. Check your car before you travel. And also you may find that a sibling or a neighbour is more reactive and angry than usual. Advise everyone with this to be a little bit detached, to give some space between you and this situation before you react. If someone is being quite explosive, just keep your wits about you that day and don't drive like a maniac. If you are traveling, there could be unexpected changes, or an unexpected trip could come up and you're thinking, right, okay, I'm off. You had no plans to go, but off you go. Unexpected road trip maybe for some of you, Pisces, which could be quite exciting. Mars then enters your 4th house on the 20th. Jupiter's there expanding your home situation. A lot of you could be moving in the next year, renovating, expanding your home, buying your first house, moving for the first time. Some of you could be expanding your family as well. Mars going through this sector means that you're putting a lot of energy into your home, so you feel really driven to make things happen in the house. With property, you're like, okay, I want to move here. I want to get this going. I want to renovate this. Mars going through the 4th is one of the main things I've seen make people unexpectedly take a hammer to a wall that they just don't like anymore. Be mindful of being too impulsive. With Gemini here, it's good to have a logical plan, to know the details of what it is that you're going to do. But I do think a lot of you could be putting energy into making changes in the home or taking action on a home or property project. Now, Mars rules the 2nd house, so you could be spending more money on the home or on property. This also does mean that if you have family, they can be a bit argumentative or a bit touchy. They could be more prone to saying things that hurt your feelings or cause an argument or discord. Just be mindful of that. Where Mars goes, energy does flow, but also it's usually the area you experience some degree of frustration or confrontation at times. So just be mindful of that, Pisces. There can be some arguments with family, but there can also be a lot of, action with family, maybe going to the gym with a family member, maybe going on a hike with a family member or something like that as well. There's a full moon in your 11th house on the 21st. Think back to the solstice in June. What was going on for you around that time? This gives you a clue as to what storyline may be unfolding under this full moon. This can be a time where, because it's the 11th house, there's the manifestation of some kind of wish. It is sextile your ruler Neptune in your sign. So something maybe you want personally is manifesting. This can also be a very social full moon. You're likely to be out with a group of people, out with friends, at a social event. There is a connection to Pluto, so you might be ready to, and Pluto's in your 12th house, you might be ready to finally let go of something. Or I hate to say it, for some of you, a friend could be going out of your life, whether that's that they're moving or you're letting go of a friend emotionally, or it's the ending of a chapter with a friendship. Although for some of you, it could also be forgiving a friend with the sextile to Neptune in your sign. Friendship is highlighted under that full moon. Teams, groups of people, someone could be leaving your team, someone could be leaving your friendship circle. Saturn is in your sign, so it feels like if there's an event, maybe you're organizing it, or maybe you are in some way responsible for it. So maybe you're going along to it sober, or maybe you're going along to it with a goal in mind or the future in mind. Pisces, it's not necessarily just socializing for the crack, it's kind of socializing for a work objective or some kind of goal that you're meeting, I think. Around that full moon, there is a nice sextile between Venus in your 6th house and Jupiter in your 4th, though. So this could be, a positive time socially. Just there can be a bit of enjoyment. I do think there's a little bit of a work goal behind the scenes, or it's related to work in some kind. So maybe it's a social work event happening around the time of that full moon. As I said, the sun enters your 6th house on the 22nd, and we sort of shift out of this fun time Cancerian energy into really focusing on health, wellness, fitness, and your work. Pisces. Pisces, I had to cut the recording there because a cat that was not my cat just tried to jump in the window at me. It was a really cute tabby kitten, but I had to cut the recording to go see what on earth was going on. But anyway, what I was saying before the cat came in was that Mercury is entering your relationship sector on the 25th. And also, I believe in signs, so if a tabby cat is a sign for you, there's a lot of focus in your 6th house. Maybe some of you are getting pets this month with Venus being in the 6th. Maybe some of you are getting a pet. That's entirely possible that you're getting a cat. But anyway, Mercury enters your 7th house on the 25th. Mercury rules your 7th house. So to have your 7th house ruler in the 7th puts a bit of an emphasis on partnerships and relationships, you know, communication being a big focus in a significant relationship in your life. Maybe your significant other, maybe a business partner, maybe a best friend. There could be some stuff that comes up that needs to be readdressed in August, because Mercury will go retrograde in that sector. With Mercury being in shadow here, some of you may hear from an ex, some of you may hear from someone you used to date, or someone you used to be friends with, or someone you used to have a significant relationship with. And this can be a big focus for you. Mercury retrograde will connect with Venus in August. So there could be, for some of you, you know, a reconnection in your life, maybe to an old friend or an old partner or something like that. And it doesn't have to be an ex romantically, but it can just be an old relationship in your life where maybe some time has passed. It doesn't even have to be an estrangement, but it can be reconnecting with somebody. I do think in terms of the details and making plans with a partner or a business partner or a relationship of any kind, be extra mindful of the details, because as I say, with Mercury retrograde, I always say that there's room for miscommunication, and Virgo is the sign of details. And also be wary of being too critical of others when you're having communication with them. Mercury retrograde will also in August go back into your 6th house, so be prepared to go over some details about work or have to correct mistakes from work in the past. You may actually want to focus on getting some of your work in July submitted early where you can, because the retrograde can be a bit more chaotic. When it comes to your 6th house, I know I'm looking into August's forecast, but I'm just giving you a sense of there may be conversations coming up that get repeated in August too, so do pay attention to the details, Pisces. That is what I have for you this month. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll talk to you soon.